Chapter 47. Looking at Yun Mengyao who was standing in front of him, Yi Xian furrowed his brows and said, "What do you want? You bastard, don't even think about leaving after you beat someone up." Yun Mengyao clenched her teeth as tears of grievance flowed out of her eyes. She didn't know why she had to stop Yi Xian. It was as if she was filled with resentment towards Yi Xian and found a reason to block Yi Xian's path. Looking at the beautiful Yun Mengyao in front of him, Yi Xian slowly shook his head and said, "First of all, you have to understand that this matter has nothing to do with you. In fact, both sides are responsible for a fight between two children. Your teacher only needs to reprimand them, but your teacher's way of handling the matter is obviously biased towards one side. Since that's the case, I naturally have to use my own way to resolve this matter. So your way is violence?" Yun Mengyao bit her lips and stood in front of the door. It looked like she wasn't going to give way no matter what. At this moment, Yun Mengyao was extremely agitated. Yi Xian was also puzzled. Was this girl crazy? Why did she have to make things difficult for him? No. You might have misunderstood. I am a reasonable person. His daughter was injured and he needed 1 million yuan as compensation. I gave him that amount. However, in my heart, my sister is priceless. Asking him to compensate her with 1 billion yuan and cutting off 3 of his fingers is already a very light punishment. Moreover, what does this matter have to do with you? Yi Xian said with dissatisfaction. Yun Mengyao didn't know how to refute Yi Xian's twisted logic. This made her so angry that her face turned red. She angrily rebuked, "I don't care. I just won't allow you to leave." Nonsense. Yi Xian was not a kind man. He didn't have the so-called tenderness for the fairer sex. How could he have the time to tangle with Yun Mengyao? Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Yi Xian stretched out his hand and pushed Yun Mengyao away. Yun Mengyao staggered and fell to the ground, letting out a muffled groan. Yi Xian pulled Yi Ling toward the door, but before he could take more than a few steps, Yi Ling's expression was complicated. She turned around and went to Yun Mengyao's side, helping her up. "Teacher Yun, don't blame my brother. His personality is like this. I apologize to you on his behalf," Yi Ling said apologetically. "This person is really violent. He even hit a goddess like Teacher Yun." "Shoo, keep your voice down. If he hears you, you'll be in trouble." Although everyone was afraid of Yi Xian, they still began to discuss when they saw this scene. Clearly, they were filled with resentment towards Yi Xian's violent actions, but they didn't dare to vent their anger openly. "Ling, your brother is a bastard," Yun Mengyao said with shame and indignation. She glared at Yi Xian fiercely. She had never thought that this man would be so rude. "Ling, let's go home." Unfortunately, Yi Xian ignored Yun Mengyao's fierce glare. He didn't want to have anything to do with this woman, so naturally, he wouldn't care about her feelings. Tap, tap, tap. Suddenly, a large number of footsteps could be heard. Before the person arrived, the noise could already be heard. "Constable Lu, he's the one who caused trouble in the school. Not only did he injure our teacher, but he also chopped off 3 of Director Sun's fingers." At the staircase, Lu Jundai was leading several constables to Yi Xian's location. There were even a few school leaders accompanying her. "Nonsense, this is too much. How could you do such a bloody and cruel thing?" As Lu Jundai and the others arrived in front of the office, before Lu Jundai could say anything, Principal Zhang Derui saw the scene in the office and his expression instantly changed. He directly looked at Yi Xian and angrily reprimanded him. "Constable Lu, please arrest him and bring justice to our Sky Blue Academy," Principal Zhang Derui said with hatred. Constable Lu. You have to do something for me." Sun Wanqiang's face was pale as he walked up to Lu Jundai. The blood on his hand was even more glaring. Just when everyone thought that Lu Jundai was going to bring Yi Xian to justice in the next moment, the following scene caused them to be completely dumbfounded. Gotcha. A pair of shining handcuffs appeared in Lu Jundi's hand. However, the person she took wasn't Yi Xian, but Sun Wanxiang. When the handcuffs were cuffed, Sun Wanxiang froze on the spot. Sun Wanxiang, you are suspected of extortion. Please come with us to the Hanging Mirror Department for investigation. Take him away. Following Lu Jundi's order, a few constables took Sun Wanxiang down the stairs. I'm innocent. Constable Lu. Constable Lu, are you mistaken? Sun Wanxiang quickly regained his senses and cried out to Lu Jundai. Constable Lu, what is going on? Principal Zhang Derui was extremely shocked. Clearly, he didn't understand what was going on. Mr. Yi, I'm sorry to have frightened you. We will give you a satisfactory explanation for this matter, Lu Jundai said calmly. She didn't say anything more to Yi Xian and turned to leave with Sun Wanxiang. Lu Jundai came quickly and left quickly. However, the way she handled this matter was shocking. Many of the teachers present felt as if they were in a dream. In fact, no one present knew that when Yi Xian returned from the capital directly issued a secret order to the Jiangnan prefectures. Any matter related to Yi Xian was to be reported directly to the Wuhan Bureau. No one else was to interfere or else they would be severely punished. When Lu Jundai received this secret order from the Jiangnan prefectures, she was also very confused. However, she had to obey the order given by her superiors. That was why the scene just now happened. Ring ring ring. A phone rang from Principal Zhang Derui's pocket. This also brought him back to reality. He quickly took out his phone. When he saw the phone number on the screen, he was even more shocked. He quickly picked up the phone. Hello, Elder Zhua. Okay, I understand. Yes. This is our school's mistake. Don't worry, Elder Zhua. I will deal with this matter seriously. Zhang Derui was drenched in cold sweat. His lips were slightly pale. When he handed the phone to Yi Xian, the anger from before had completely disappeared. It had completely turned into a flattering smile. Hello, is this Mr. Yi? An old voice came from the other end of the phone. You are. Yi Xian confirmed that he didn't know the person on the other end of the phone. This also made him question. Mr. Yi, Zhuo Junting is this old man's granddaughter. I originally wanted to personally thank you for saving my life. However, when I heard that you were not in Jiangnan, I didn't have the chance to meet you. Elder Zhuo's voice was sincere. When Zhuo Junting was mentioned, Yi Xian already knew the other party's identity. It was obvious that the Zhuo family valued Yi Xian very much. They also found out about Yi Ling's matter immediately, which was why they called. Yi Xian held the phone and chatted for a while. Meanwhile, Zhang Derui, who was bowing at the side, had a smile on his face. When Yi Xian hung up the phone, he said with a flattering smile, Don't worry, Mr. Yi. This kind of unfair thing happened in the school. We will definitely deal with it seriously. After saying this, Zhang Derui's face instantly turned cold. He looked directly at Li Hongyan and said angrily, Ms. Li, originally, a fight between two students was just a small matter. However, your actions were biased and completely lost the morals of a teacher. From today onwards, you are no longer a teacher of our Sky Blue Academy. You are fired. Chapter 48. The sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly. Although the air was still a little chilly, the streets were bustling with activity. All the shopping malls were packed with people. Everyone was buying New Year goods and preparing to spend the New Year. New Year. It was the most important festival in the Xia. Not only was Jiangnan City bustling with activity, but the entire Xia was the same. At this moment, Yi Xian was returning home with his little sister. However, the image of Yun Mengyao gnashing her teeth when they left the Sky Blue Academy appeared in his mind. This woman is really naive. Yi Xian smiled and erased Yun Mengyao's figure from his mind. Brother, isn't our teacher Yun beautiful? Yi Ling smiled slyly. Yes, this woman is gentle and decent, kind-hearted, and her appearance is indeed peerless. Yi Xian casually replied. He he. Hearing Yi Xian's reply, Yi Ling sneered, Brother, you were too rough today. You completely offended Teacher Yun. I'm afraid that if you want her to be your girlfriend, you won't have a chance. Yi Xian was stunned and scolded with a smile. What are you thinking, little girl? It's impossible between us. Brother, let me tell you something serious. Teacher Yun is really not bad. If I were you, I would definitely try my best to get her. Moreover, I really want her to be my sister-in-law. Yi Ling was like a spirit, constantly egging Yi Xian on. Looking at his little sister's serious look, Yi Xian was slightly stunned. He then shook his head helplessly. A hint of vicissitudes flashed across his eyes, but he hid it well. Yi Xian looked at the horizon and said in a low voice, Little sister, what I'm pursuing is not love. Moreover, she and I are people from two different worlds. It's impossible. Brother, let me tell you. Mom has always wanted me to find a girlfriend for you. I think Teacher Yun is very good. Even if you want to be an old bachelor, would Mom agree? Yi Ling pouted. Alright, little girl. Don't bring this up again, Yi Xian scolded jokingly. I'll go back and tell Mom that you bullied me. Yi Ling stuck out her tongue and ran ahead. Looking at Yi Ling's cheerful figure, Yi Xian's eyes flashed with self-mockery. How could he forget that in the eyes of his mother and sister, his son was the older brother? Sooner or later, he would get married and have a family. This was a major life event, how could they not take it seriously? In the boundless secular world, there are 7 emotions and 6 desires. Living in the mortal world, do I really have to face the so-called love tribulation? Yi Xian muttered to himself and laughed at himself. The so-called love was nothing more than an illusion. The so-called beauty would only be a skeleton after 100 years. After 4 years of living in the blood sea, Yi Xian asked himself. He had long since given up on these things. He did not even know where his humble heart of pity had gone. Only he knew what he truly wanted. When Yi Xian had experienced the trials of life and death, no one understood the meaning of life better than him. If the heavens and earth were destroyed, he would not be destroyed. If all living things died, he would not die. His words were the law, and his actions were the law. He pursued the Tong Tian Dao until he looked down on the 9 heavens. That was what he truly wanted. Returning to his thoughts, Yi Xian strolled back home. At the same time, at the capital city airport. On the passenger plane from the capital city to Jiangnan City, Xia Qingzhu was wearing white sportswear. She was sitting in the first-class cabin in a daze. She looked at the white clouds outside the window with a perplexed look in her eyes. Yi Xian, what have you experienced in the past 4 years? Xia Qingzhu muttered to herself. Above the North Sea. A blood-red light illuminated the horizon. The misty blood-red light floated high in the sky. The endless waves of the North Sea surged. The sound of a huge tsunami was endless. Countless fish and shrimps in the water were slapped ashore. Buzz! The void vibrated and ripples spread. A wisp of blood-red light buzzed in the sky, as if it was calling someone. However, that strange movement completely caused the North Sea to be in turmoil. The endless seawater surged and the waves rolled towards the coast, drowning a small town on the coastline. It also caused the local residents to wail and flee in a sorry state. It was a huge tsunami. It was a terrifying disaster that directly attracted the attention of Xia Nation. Many rescue teams rushed towards the North Sea town and quickly evacuated the local people to prevent a greater disaster. Biyun Pavilion. Night fell and stars dotted the night sky. When Mrs. Yi found out that Yi Xian had returned home, she deliberately went home early and cooked some exquisite and delicious dishes. The family was having dinner happily and chatting about some daily life. Eating the dishes cooked by Mrs. Yi, Yi Xian looked satisfied. Under Mrs. Ye's inquiry, Yi Xian did not mention that he had gone to the capital city. Of course, Yi Xian did not tell Mrs. Yi about the changes in Yiping. If Mrs. Yi knew the truth, she would probably suffer a huge blow. We are now broadcasting urgent news. We are now in Nanshan town. From here, we can clearly see that there is a huge tsunami in the North Sea. This is the first time such a huge natural disaster has happened in our country in 100 years. Suddenly, a voice came from the television, causing Yi Xian to look towards the screen. When he saw the scene on the television, he was stunned. Then, he abruptly stood up, and the aura around him fluctuated greatly. On the television, it was raining cats and dogs, and the host was swaying in the wind and rain. Her beautiful face was full of horror, and many people around her were pale. Clearly, they had been greatly frightened. The host was reporting the news while trembling slightly, and the scene in the distance was the scene of the North Sea churning violently. Attention all the citizens around the North Sea. Please hurry to the inland to gather. There is a rescue team there. Look, what's that? Suddenly, there was a scream coming from the television. The camera also began to shake, and the scene in the sky was directly shown on the screen. A blurry blood light floated in the clouds high in the sky. The deafening buzzing sound reverberated continuously, and the scene on the television came to an abrupt end. Such a shocking phenomenon was naturally seen by all the citizens of Xia Nation, and not just the people of Xia Nation. At this moment, satellites from all over the world detected this shocking scene, and it attracted the attention of all the countries. Ah, I hope this natural disaster will pass soon. Mrs. Yi sighed. Mother, I'm going out for a while. I might be back later. Without waiting for Mrs. Yi to respond, Yi Xian quickly walked out of the house and disappeared. This also made Mrs. Yi and Yi Ling stunned, not knowing what happened to Yi Xian. In the vast sky, light flashed. Yi Xian seemed to have turned into a shooting star, directly tearing through the endless clouds. With a terrifying flame behind him, he shot towards the North Sea at an unimaginable speed. Heaven-destroying halberd? How is this possible? How is this possible? Why would heaven-destroying halberd appear in the human world? What happened in the Blood Sea battlefield? Yi Xian's face was cold, and the aura around him fluctuated violently. He could not understand why heaven-destroying halberd would appear in the North Sea. Chapter 49. The sky darkened and dark clouds covered the sky. The boundless North Sea was undergoing a terrifying change. Huge waves swept across the sky and heavy rain poured down. Terrifying lightning flashed across the sky and accompanied by loud roars, it was as if the end of the world had arrived. The 3-foot-long blood halberd floated in the void and buzzing sounds spread in all directions. It was like a child's whimper and also like a call for the return of a loved one. It made people feel as if their souls were about to leave their bodies when they heard it. All the satellites in the world detected this strange scene and transmitted the image to the ground, allowing the higher-ups of all the countries to see it. Capital of Xia country. Calls from all over the world were ringing and the members of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs were extremely busy. Chief, a foreign official from America is calling. Chief, the Deputy Prime Minister of Japan wants to speak to you. The Prime Minister of Korea wants to speak to you personally. Reports kept coming into Li Lingguo's ears, but he was not in the mood to care about these people with ulterior motives. He just stared at the image on the screen and did not dare to blink. Quickly analyze the data and find out what the thing in the sky is made of, Li Lingguo quickly ordered. Chief, the magnetic field of North Sea is chaotic and we can't analyze the data, a researcher reported to Li Lingguo quickly. Rumble. Like a falling star, like the light of dawn, Yi Xian tore through the endless darkness and suddenly appeared in the sky above North Sea. When he appeared, the world suddenly quieted down. Woo! Blood filled the sky and waves rolled. The 3-foot-long blood halberd floating in the void seemed to have seen its loved one. The body of the halberd exploded with Tongtian blood light as if it was cheering. Halberd, come. The Tongtian moved the earth and shook the world. A low roar that shook the world exploded in all directions. The heaven-destroying halberd suddenly turned into a ray of light and shot towards Yi Xian violently with an endless murderous aura. This scene directly appeared in the eyes of the higher-ups of all the countries and caused an uproar. All kinds of sophisticated instruments were operating, trying to see Yi Xian's true appearance. Unfortunately, a mysterious force was blocking the spying of the various countries in the world, preventing them from clearly seeing Yi Xian's appearance. However, this kind of astonishing scene caused them to be dumbstruck and unable to recover from their shock for a long time. The halberd in his hand was cold to the touch, but it gave Yi Xian a feeling of blood connection. Yi Xian's expression was solemn. He knew that the satellites of all the countries in the world must be spying on him. Yi Xian did not delay and took a step forward with the heaven-destroying halberd in his hand and instantly disappeared in the sky above North Sea. Following Yi Xian's departure, the surging waves of the North Sea suddenly stopped, and the black clouds in the sky gradually dissipated. A terrifying natural disaster was turned into nothingness just like that. However, the various countries in the world were in complete chaos. All the mysterious forces of the various countries were mobilized, and they all rushed towards China. It was obvious that they wanted to investigate this mysterious incident. Jiangnan City, Baiyun Pavilion. When Yi Xian returned home, it was already 3 days later. It was early in the morning and Yi Xian's mother and Yi Ling had already left. However, Yi Xian's expression was solemn, as if he had something on his mind. Buzz! The 3-foot-long blood halberd was surrounded by a hazy bloody light and was flying around Yi Xian. From time to time, it would let out a joyful sound and terrifying ripples would appear in the surrounding space. This ancient weapon could slay gods and destroy immortals. This was not just a saying. If this weapon had not recognized Yi Xian as its master and restrained its terrifying aura, it would have been able to turn everything around it into ashes. Come! As Yi Xian whispered, the heaven-destroying halberd landed in his hand. The bloody light on the halberd gradually receded and the heaven-destroying halberd appeared in front of Yi Xian's eyes. The halberd was simple and unadorned. Its entire body was black and ancient and mysterious patterns were engraved on it. It was impossible to tell what material it was made of. However, when one looked at it, one would feel as if one's soul would be sucked into it. Yi Xian stroked the body of the halberd and said in a low voice, "Yuan Ling was in the Blood Sea battlefield with you. Now that you have appeared in the mortal world, the Blood Sea battlefield will definitely be in chaos." Buzz! The halberd buzzed incessantly, as if it was responding to Yi Xian. This also made Yi Xian frown slightly and worry appeared in his eyes. Immortal cultivators were above mortals and roamed the void. What they pursued was to live as long as the heavens and become immortals. 4 years ago, Yi Xian suffered from a terminal illness and came to the Heartbroken Mountain by chance. He wanted to end his life there, but he accidentally entered the Blood Sea battlefield and got Yuan Ling's help to escape the disaster of death. He cultivated the immortal scripture and was recognized as the master of the heaven-destroying halberd. He fought in the endless Blood Sea to achieve his current supreme cultivation. The origin of the immortal scripture was extremely mysterious. Even Yi Xian did not know who its previous master was, what kind of place the Blood Sea battlefield was, and who made the heaven-destroying halberd. Yi Xian did not know these riddles. As the weapon spirit of the immortal scripture, Yuan Ling obviously knew many secrets. However, he had never revealed them to Yi Xian. He only told Yi Xian that if he wanted to be truly immortal, the first step was to become an immortal. However, Yi Xian did not take this step for a long time. When he entered the tribulation stage, he had the ability to open the door to the earth immortal realm. However, because of his obsession with his family, he returned to the mortal world. This method disappointed Yuan Ling. Yi Xian also understood that Yuan Ling had always been waiting for him to return to the Blood Sea battlefield. However, if he were to give up on his family, it would obviously go against his original intention. Yuan Ling had once told him that if he wanted to rule the 9 heavens and look down on all living things, he would have to completely abandon the so-called mortal family. Only then would he be able to forget about his feelings and achieve his heart's desire. However, Yi Xian could not do it. He really could not do it. If he were to kill Mother Yi and Yi Ling, with his own hands, even the last bit of humanity he had left would disappear. At that time, would he still be the real him? When Yi Xian lost his last bit of humanity, he would become a killing machine. Perhaps even he himself would not know who he was. This was also the reason why he did not trust Yuan Ling. Yi Xian had a faint premonition that although Yuan Ling did not have any ill intentions towards him, he had a great intention. It was like a chessboard, and Yuan Ling was gradually controlling how he would place his pieces. Yi Xian did not like this feeling. Yi Xian had no way of knowing what Yuan Ling's intentions were. However, he also believed that in the future, he would definitely know the true secret of the Blood Sea battlefield. Yi Xian knew very well that in this mortal world, he might be invincible. However, Yuan Ling had once told him that there were extremely terrifying demons suppressed in the Blood Sea battlefield. If it were not for the heaven-destroying halberd, which was a great weapon of slaughter, they would have already escaped. This time, Yi Xian understood that the heaven-destroying halberd had appeared in the mortal world to find him. However, without the suppression of the heaven-destroying halberd, would the demons suppressed in the depths of the Blood Sea be able to escape? Chapter 50. Yi Xian pondered for a long time. His aura was slightly chaotic. He was not afraid of these demons. He was called the Immortal Heavenly Lord, so he naturally had his own terrifying means. Not to mention these demons, even if he faced a real immortal, he would not be afraid. However, if these demons left the Blood Sea battlefield, the world he was in would be in great turmoil. The terrifying beasts on both sides of the Blood Sea would bring disaster to the world. Yi Xian seemed to see the scene of the future. No, I have to go back after all. Yi Xian thought for a long time and finally made a decision. Whether it was for Yuan Ling or for himself, he had to return to the Blood Sea battlefield. Knock, knock, knock. Suddenly, a series of knocks came from the door, waking Yi Xian from his thoughts. The heaven-destroying halberd turned into a blood-red light and merged into Yi Xian's forehead. Is Yi Xian home? An extremely familiar voice sounded from outside the door, causing Yi Xian's eyes to narrow as astonishment flashed through his eyes. Why is it her? Yi Xian said softly as he slowly opened the door. Xia Qingzhu's beautiful face appeared in his eyes. Are you surprised to see me? Xia Qingzhu smiled as she looked at Yi Xian. What's the matter? Yi Xian was not moved by Xia Qingzhu's arrival. This woman in front of him, even though he had a past with her, Yi Xian only treated her as a passerby. Yi Xian's unapproachable attitude made Xia Qingzhu's heart ache. She forced a smile and said, Aren't you going to invite me in? No, I'm going out soon. If there's nothing else, you can leave now. After Yi Xian finished speaking, he was about to close the door. This caused Xia Qingzhu's expression to turn bitter. She didn't expect Yi Xian to be so heartless to her. Brother, look who I brought. Suddenly, before Yi Xian could close the door, Yi Ling-er's voice came from the distance. Yi Ling-er and Yun Mengyao walked towards Yi Xian together. When the two of them arrived in front of Xia Qingzhu, the atmosphere immediately became somewhat heavy. You are Sister Qingzhu. When Yi Ling-er saw Xia Qingzhu, she was completely stunned. Long time no see. You're still so beautiful. Xia Qingzhu smiled at Yi Ling-er. However, when she saw Yun Mengyao, a complicated look appeared in her eyes. Yun Mengyao was very beautiful. It was a kind of beauty that was as gentle as jade. It was also the first time Xia Qingzhu had seen a woman who could compare to her. This made her even more vigilant. Mr. Yi, from today onwards, I am Ling Er's homeroom teacher. I came here today to do a home visit. Although Yun Mengyao did not smile, she did not give off the slightest sense of sternness. Looking at the scene in front of him, Yi Xian frowned slightly. Originally, the matter of the Blood Sea battlefield had already made him upset. Now that there were two women in his home, it made him even more upset. Sister Qingzhu, Teacher Yun, let's talk inside. Without waiting for Yi Xian to react, Yi Ling directly pulled the two women's hands and quickly walked into the house. This also made Yi Xian's face gloomy. He could only close the door and sit back on the sofa in the living room without saying a word. Clearly, he had no intention of interacting with the two women. Mr. Yi, you have to supervise Ling Er's studies. Don't you want to talk to me? Seeing that Yi Xian had no intention of paying attention to her, Yun Mengyao put on the dignity of a teacher and said, What do you want to say? Yi Xian said coldly. Hey, what's wrong with you? Don't you care about your sister's studies? Yun Mengyao said angrily. Originally, today's home visit was actually proposed by Yun Mengyao. She was very curious about what kind of person Yi Xian was. After meeting Yi Xian twice, Yi Xian gave her a very deep impression. When Yun Mengyao was curious about Yi Xian, it was also the beginning of her fall, although she did not understand this logic. Yun Mengyao already somewhat understood Yi Xian's cold temperament and was prepared to endure it. However, for some reason, when she saw Xia Qingzhu, a burst of anger suddenly rose from the bottom of her heart and finally exploded at this moment. Looking at the scene in front of her, Xia Qingzhu's expression froze and a hint of joy rose in her eyes. It seemed that Yi Xian and this woman were not in a relationship. Boring. Yi Xian said softly and picked up the ancient book on the table to read. As for the existence of the two women, they were directly ignored by him. Three women made a show. The two women were ignored by Yi Xian, so they naturally chatted with Yi Ling Er. During Yi Ling Er's introduction, the two women also greeted each other. Not long after, the three women actually became one, and the atmosphere in the entire villa became lively. Getting up and walking out of the house, this was Yi Xian's choice. When Yi Xian disappeared from the villa, the originally lively atmosphere suddenly quieted down. Xia Qingzhu and Yun Mengyao chatted casually, and Yi Ling the mischievous girl, also had an awkward expression. Yi Xian walked alone on the winding path. His face was slightly gloomy, and his heart was still thinking about the matter of the Blood Sea battlefield. The arrival of the two women only made him more irritated. Yi Xian understood. Yun Mengyao had come to the house, and he clearly knew what Yi Ling was thinking. As for Xia Qingzhu, although he did not know what her purpose was for coming to Jiangnan from the capital, Yi Xian only treated her as a passerby. The sun was setting, and night had fallen. Yi Xian estimated that the two women should be about to leave, and only then did he return home. When Yi Xian opened the door, the scene that appeared before his eyes caused him to be completely stunned on the spot. A complicated expression flashed across his face. In the living room, Yi Ling sat at the dining table, secretly eating the dishes on the table. In the kitchen, Mother Yi was preparing dinner, but why did Yun Mengyao and Xia Qingzhu not leave, but instead help Mother Yi? The atmosphere was warm, and there was laughter. Mother Ye's voice slowly entered Yi Xian's ears. When Yi Xian was 1 year old, his body was not very good. Once, when I took him to the hospital, he actually peed on the hospital bed. This really destroyed his morale. As Mother Ye's voice fell, the two women's laughter suddenly sounded, and Yi Xian's body trembled slightly, and a flush appeared on his face. As a dignified immortal cultivator, the immortal heavenly lord that was feared by millions, Yi Xian's feelings at this moment were indescribable. He could only cough heavily, and only then did Mother Yi in the kitchen stop talking. Xian, why are you only back now? Wash your hands and we'll eat soon. Mother Yi greeted Yi Xian, and continued to talk and laugh with the two women. Obviously, when Yi Xian was not around, the two women had already won Mother Ye's favor when she returned home. Brother, mother likes these two sisters very much. Yi Ling teased. At this moment, Yi Xian finally became serious. He discovered an extremely terrifying thing, and that was that Mother Yi really wanted him to start a family as soon as possible. For Yi Xian, this kind of thing was simply unimaginable. Chapter 51. When Yi Xian returned home, the two girls looked at each other with different expressions, but without exception, they were both happy. It was just that they didn't notice it. Yi Xian was not used to the sudden addition of two women in the house. When the food was served, Yi Xian lowered his head and ate without any intention of speaking. During this time, Mother Yi and the two girls talked and laughed, but did not mention Yi Xian's embarrassing childhood. Only when it was very late did the two girls say goodbye to Mother Yi. Mr. Yi, Auntie's cooking is really delicious. I will come often in the future. Before leaving, Yun Mengyao smiled at Yi Xian. Goodbye, Auntie. Xia Qingzhu politely said goodbye to Mother Yi. Before leaving, she silently looked at Yi Xian, and then the two girls walked out of Yi Xian's house together. Xianer, you and Qingzhu. Seeing the two girls leave, Mother Yi wanted to say something, but stopped. She naturally knew about the past between Xia Qingzhu and Yi Xian, but she didn't expect to see this girl at home today. I have nothing to do with her. Yi Xian shook his head. Ah. Mother Yi sighed and said, Qingzhu is the daughter of the Xia family. We are not worthy of her, but I think Meng Yao is a good child. Xianer, why don't you? Yi Xian could see the anticipation in Mother Ye's eyes. This made his expression serious. He said, Mother, what I am pursuing is not love. I hope you can understand. Brother, Teacher Yun is really good. Are you really not going to consider her? Yi Linger interrupted. Yi Xian really wanted to say that if he was just a mortal, then perhaps Yun Mengyao would really be a good choice. However, he wasn't a mortal. Sooner or later, he would leave this world, so how could he have the mood to provoke the so-called love between men and women? Yi Xian's attitude was very clear, and Mama Yi couldn't persuade him. She just said that she was tired and returned to her room. Looking at Yi Xian's disappointed back, Yi Xian knows very well that in Yi Mu's heart, he will marry a wife and have children sooner or later. This is a major event in life. How can there be a mother who doesn't care about her son? However, mortals would eventually die. This was a fate that could not be changed. Even if he really did marry and have children, after 100 years, was this really the ending he wanted? Ling Er, I'm going on a long trip. I'll definitely be back before the new year. Tell Mom when you get back, Yi Xian said bluntly to Yi Ling Er, suppressing his annoyance. Brother, you just came back, Yi Linger said. Where are you going? Why are you going for so long this time? Hearing Yi Linger's words, Yi Xian looked in the direction of Heartbreak Mountain. His gaze was deep as he said, there are some things you don't understand. Everyone has their own responsibilities, and that place is my responsibility. After Yi Xian finished speaking, he directly walked out of the house. Under the illumination of the moonlight, his back seemed lonely and bleak. It was as if he was walking alone on an ancient road. No one could understand the world he was in. Looking at Yi Xian's back as he left, Yi Linger's face was lifeless. She couldn't help but think of a sentence. She couldn't remember where she saw it from, but at this moment, it appeared in her mind. There is never a peaceful time. It is just that someone is carrying the burden for you. In a coffee house. Xia Qingzhu and Yun Mengyao sat facing each other. The atmosphere between the two was silent. After a dozen breaths of time, Xia Qingzhu was the first to break the silence. You like Yi Xian? Looking at Xia Qingzhu's extremely serious expression, Yun Mengyao was suddenly startled. She said, this is the question you brought me here to ask me? Tell me, do you like him or not? Xia Qingzhu said seriously. Miss Xia, you might be mistaken. I am only Yi Linger's teacher. This is only a home visit. Facing Xia Qingzhu's powerful aura, Yun Mengyao's expression did not change. You and I are both women. A woman's intuition is very accurate. My feelings tell me that you like him, Xia Qingzhu said softly. Miss Xia, your joke is not funny at all. How could I like such a violent person? Yun Mengyao bit her lips. A trace of shyness flashed through her eyes. She looked directly at Xia Qingzhu and said with a slightly dissatisfied voice, and even if I like him, this matter doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. As expected. Looking at Yun Mengyao's attitude, Xia Qingzhu slowly nodded. Miss Xia, what do you mean? Yun Mengyao frowned slightly. Mengyao, I want to tell you that Yi Xian is not an ordinary person. He is really not suitable for you. I hope that you will not have any contact with him in the future, Xia Qingzhu said. Miss Xia, are you warning me? Yun Mengyao asked. It's not a warning. It's just that I will not allow other women to get close to him. As a daughter of the Xia clan, Xia Qingzhu had an extremely powerful aura. Looking at Xia Qingzhu's cold and powerful aura, Yun Mengyao was also shocked. However, she did not show any weakness. She said, I don't know what kind of person he is. Even if I like him, it is my own right. You have no right to control me. Yun Mengyao got up and left. She did not want to say another word to Xia Qingzhu. However, before she walked out of the coffee house, Xia Qingzhu's voice slowly rang out. I have known him for 4 years. We were once childhood friends. I know him very well. What about you? Hearing Xia Qingzhu's words, Yun Mengyao's heart was filled with anger. She turned around and said, You know him well. But today, I saw him reject you outside the door. He doesn't like you either, right? The battle between the two women was going on silently. Yi Xian naturally did not know about this. Even if he knew, he would not have the heart to care about this kind of thing. Heartbreak Mountain. The mountain range was tens of thousands of feet high. It was majestic and lofty. The mountain range rose and fell continuously. Ferocious beasts ran amok in the mountain range and poisonous insects were everywhere. It was one of the 8 great mountains of the world. It was also an extremely ancient forest. The towering ancient trees were lush with vegetation. A gentle breeze blew, bringing with it the fragrance of the plants. There were also the sounds of birds chirping from time to time in this forest. Yi Xian strolled in Heartbreak Mountain. Every step he took seemed to shrink the ground into an inch. He was walking towards the depths of the mountain. Returning to his old home, Yi Xian was absent-minded. He did not expect that he would return so quickly. However, at this moment, he was thinking about the Blood Sea battlefield. He did not have the heart to admire this forest. Whoosh whoosh. When Yi Xian arrived at the deepest part of the mountain, what appeared before him was a waterfall that was thousands of feet high. The sparkling and translucent waves constantly slammed into a pool, splashing up sparkling and translucent jade-like waves. A green stone tablet, 10 feet long and 10 feet wide, seemed to have been standing at the center of the pool since the distant past. Wang! Yi Xian took a step forward. Ripples appeared in the air as he directly arrived before the green stone tablet. Looking at the giant tablet in front of him, Yi Xian did not hesitate any longer. He suddenly struck out with his palms. A blood-red inscription permeated the air, causing the stone tablet to undergo an extremely miraculous change. Rumble. With a sky-high explosion, the stone tablet changed. A blood-red door of light appeared before Yi Xian. As Yi Xian stepped into it, the door of light suddenly disappeared and turned back into the green stone tablet. It was as if the previous scene was just an illusion. Chapter 52. The sky was turbid and the ground was bloody and muddy. Countless white bones were scattered all over the ground, and the air was filled with the thick smell of blood. Splash! A long river of blood flowed from the west to the east. As the waves rolled, the cries of millions of undead could be faintly heard. There were also unknown ghostly figures floating in the river of blood, making one's hair stand on end at a glance. Strange flowers and trees grew on both sides of the river of blood. Large amounts of blood-colored flowers bloomed slowly, giving off a poignant and breathtaking feeling. The alluring fragrance of the flowers drifted out, and hundreds of blood-colored strange beasts appeared here, following the scent. Roar! The beasts roared mournfully and screamed incessantly. Just as these beasts entered the bloody sea of flowers, something extremely terrifying happened. The bodies of the beasts rapidly turned into bloody water and were madly absorbed by the bloody sea of flowers. The bloody sea of flowers bloomed even more beautifully, but the pale white bones of the beasts made it easy for people to overlook its beauty. There was an unknown blood tree with a gaping mouth on its trunk. It was madly devouring a gigantic mutated beast. Large amounts of blood were absorbed by it, and when the mutated beast was reduced to a pile of white bones, the gaping mouth on the tree gradually disappeared without a trace. The sea of blood was boundless, stretching as far as the eye could see. In this world of blood, countless strange beasts were crazily fighting each other. There were also many ghostly figures devouring each other. This was a world of slaughter. In this world, only the strong could survive. Rumble. The void trembled and ripples spread. A bloody door of light slowly opened. As Yi Xian walked out of the door of light, an extremely terrifying murderous aura erupted from his body. The Tong Tian moved the earth and slaughtered both ancient and modern. Yi Xian's gray hair gradually turned blood red. When his eyes opened and closed, it was as if two ancient stars were rumbling and rotating. His chiseled face was filled with a cold and emotionless expression. At this moment, Yi Xian had transformed into the undying Heavenly Lord. His aura filled the entire bloody sea battlefield. His bloody hair fluttered in the wind, causing people to feel extreme fear at first glance. On both sides of the bloody sea, the living creatures were dead silent. Only the bloody river flowed and produced the sound of huge waves. Like a fog, like an illusion, like a demon, Yi Xian at this moment was like the king of the underworld walking through the world. All living creatures avoided him. Yi Xian took a step forward and directly appeared in the bloody sea of flowers. The terrifying bloody sea of flowers instantly parted to form a path for Yi Xian to walk through alone. The blood-colored old tree bowed its head and many strange beasts ran for their lives. As Yi Xian walked, every place he passed would cause a huge commotion. We pay our respects to the Heavenly Lord. Some of the bloody creatures were extremely intelligent and could already speak. As they retreated, they shouted the name of the Heavenly Lord, which caused the world around them to tremble. How could any living creature with intelligence? Yi Xian, from thump, thump, thump. It sounded like the bells of the dead and the stars in the vast universe were falling. Yi Xian looked cold. Every step he took shook the world. When he reached the top of the blood sea, a huge bloody wave lifted him and he went directly into the depths of the blood sea. At the end of the blood sea, there were mountains of corpses. A white bone throne was erected on top of a mountain of corpses and a bronze scripture was emitting a misty immortal light. It hung high in the sky, and countless blood-colored shadows were laughing eerily. You're finally back. Suddenly, a roar came from the bronze scripture. The weak light shone even brighter at this moment. It directly showed the shadow of Yuan Ling and appeared in front of Yi Xian. Boom! Blood spread and destroyed everything. Yi Xian took a step forward and appeared on top of the mountain of corpses. I am the undying Heavenly Lord. You demons and monsters. Do you think you can overturn the heavens? On top of the mountain of corpses, Yi Xian once again sat on the white bone throne. He looked at the countless blood-colored figures in the sky, and when his eyes opened and closed, an extremely terrifying evil aura surged out. He he he. Thousands of creepy laughter shook the blood sea. A ferocious ghost face appeared in the sky. So you are his successor. No wonder the heaven-destroying halberd acted strangely and we were able to escape. An unknown voice came from all directions. Yi Xian's face darkened. Buzz! The void shook. Yuan Ling suddenly appeared beside Yi Xian. But his aura was very weak. What happened? Yi Xian said in a low voice. The heaven-destroying halberd went to find you. The demons that have been suppressed for 10,000 years have escaped from the depths of the Blood Sea. I don't have time to explain to you now. Only by summoning the heaven-destroying halberd can we suppress these demons again. Yuan Ling said anxiously. He. We are demons. Suddenly, when Yuan Ling's voice fell, a presumptuous sneer came from the sky. Junior, although we have turned into bloody souls and can't remember much of our memories, the person who suppressed us is clearly engraved in our souls. Although that person was seriously injured in the past, he cultivated the immortal scripture. How could he die so easily? If I'm not wrong, you're just a puppet. Yi Xian, don't listen to their nonsense. Release the heaven-destroying halberd and suppress them in the depths of the Blood Sea. Yuan Ling roared ferociously. The aura around him fluctuated violently. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression kept changing. He had never seen Yuan Ling so flustered. It was as if he wanted to hide some unknown truth. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. He did not release the heaven-destroying halberd. Instead, he looked at the ghost face in the sky. Who is that person? And who are you? Yi Xian asked in a low voice. Who are we? He. We are immortals, we are gods. We are unwilling to have our souls destroyed. Even if we are suppressed in the ancient battlefield forever, there will be a day when we are reborn. They laughed wantonly and spoke crazily. It was obvious that the memories in the souls of the tens of thousands of bloody souls had long been fragmented. They did not know who they were in their previous lives, but from their words, it was clear that they had an extraordinary background. I remember. He is called Yuan Mo. He wants to overturn heaven and earth. He wants to control the eternal chess game. The ancient battlefield. Dead. Everyone is dead. Even Yuan Mo has disappeared without a trace. When the two words Yuan Mo appeared in the Blood Sea battlefield, Yuan Ling finally could not control his emotions. He directly transformed into the immortal scripture's original body and brazenly attacked the ghost face in the sky. How dare you? The two words Yuan Mo are not something a little immortal god like you can shout. Rumble. Immortal light filled the sky. The bloody light was chaotic. Countless bloody shadows shattered and dissipated, then gathered together again. Little weapon spirit, how can you kill us? Yi Xian, don't listen to their nonsense. Quickly summon the heaven-destroying halberd and suppress these evil demons, Yuan Ling roared angrily. Chapter 53. Yi Xian was extremely silent and did not move. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a faint flash of blood. The blood shadows all over the sky laughed as if they had discovered something interesting. Junior, the so-called undying immortal scripture is not an immortal technique at all. It is a type of devil technique. It has existed since the beginning of the world. If we are demons, then what is the original demon? Whoosh whoosh, the chilly wind whistled and the blood shadows flashed. Tens of thousands of blood shadows suddenly shot towards the broken space barrier. Obviously, they wanted to escape this bloody world while Yi Xian was deep in thought. Yi Xian, stop them. Even if you don't believe me, if they escape to the human world, there will be chaos. Yuan Ling shouted himself hoarse. Even though Yi Xian was hesitant, the origin spirit was right. Regardless of whether he was lying to him or not, if these blood souls were to escape to the human world, an extremely terrifying change would definitely occur. Heaven-destroying halberd. The center of Yi Xian's brows glowed as the heavenly slaying halberd shot out from between his brows. As the entire Blood Sea battlefield rumbled and shook, the heavenly slaying halberd directly expanded to a size of 3,000 meters, spanning across the sky. Dharma whirled. Boom boom boom. The mountains and rivers shook, and the sea of blood overturned the sky. A terrifying thing happened. Yi Xian's 7-foot body suddenly expanded until it was 3,000 meters tall. As the heavenly punishing halberd buzzed violently, it was directly held in his hand. Junior, you are only in the late stage of the tribulation stage and have not become an immortal. Even if you have the heaven-destroying halberd, how can you stop us? Tens of thousands of blood souls roared and a terrible evil aura grew. Endless blood light poured down like the water of the yellow springs and drowned Yi Xian. Kill! Without waiting for the endless blood light to invade his body, Yi Xian struck out with his halberd, directly shattering the tens of millions of blood souls into ashes. However, these blood shadows quickly gathered together, and other than their auras being slightly weak, it was obvious that they didn't suffer too much damage. Yi Xian, use the soul-refining chant. Yuan Ling reminded at the right time. God illuminates the sun and moon to set the world. Demons create chaos and turn the world into mulberry fields. Refine. The immortal scripture, kill immortals and exterminate gods. The so-called soul refinement art was a technique from the immortal scripture. However, Yi Xian had only cultivated this technique before, and this was the first time he displayed it. Buzz. The heavenly punishing halberd emitted a bloody light that shot into the sky as Yi Xian spat out an extremely profound scripture. He brandished the 3,000-meter-long halberd, causing streaks of blood-colored light to form in the air until they transformed into a god-slaying technique that directly charged towards the 10 million blood shadows. Run! Sounds of fear came from all directions as tens of millions of blood shadows frantically fled towards the spatial barrier. However, under Yi Xian's killing technique, it was unknown how many blood shadows were turned into ashes. Stop them quickly. Yuan Ling shouted in fear. He wanted to help Yi Xian, but he was only an artifact spirit and did not have much strength. The mountains and rivers shook and the sea of blood turned. The blood souls fled. Even though Yi Xian had terrifying strength, it was still difficult for him to stop them one by one. Junior, we are only remnant souls today. Once we have absorbed enough flesh and blood essence, we will definitely come to find you. Eerie laughter could be heard. Some powerful blood shadows were shouting in excitement. They directly passed through the spatial barrier and disappeared from the battlefield of the Blood Sea in an instant. The remnant souls of the blood souls that were stopped by Yi Xian were extremely violent. They knew that they were no match for Yi Xian when he used the soul-refining chant. This made them want to die together with him. Even if we can't escape from the primordial battlefield, you won't have it easy either. The blood shadow roared and self-destructed its remnant soul. An extremely terrifying force was born. Before Yi Xian could react, this force instantly smashed onto the spatial barrier, causing the shattered space to suddenly expand by 1,000 times. Roar! The sea of blood churned and the beasts roared. The strange beasts on both sides of the sea of blood did not care about Yi Xian's power and fled towards the spatial barrier. Damn it! Yi Xian's expression was extremely gloomy as he looked at the sudden situation. His Dharma idol's 3,000-meter-long body completely went berserk. The heaven-punishing halberd violently swung and smashed towards the beasts. Roar! Blood filled the sky and broken limbs. Countless strange beasts lost their lives in Yi Xian's endless slaughter. However, there were still a large number of strange beasts that escaped to the human world through the spatial barrier. There were too many creatures in the Blood Sea battlefield. Even if Yi Xian were to violently kill them, he wouldn't be able to stop them from fleeing towards the human world. Yuan Mo. All of a sudden, a mournful roar came out from Yuan Ling's mouth. His body bloomed with a strange black light. The undying immortal scripture made of bronze burst out with an extremely terrifying demonic aura. It instantly sealed off the spatial barrier and made many strange beasts fearful. Then, they scrambled to retreat to the two sides of the sea of blood. Silence, silence, extreme silence. Above the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood, the immortal celestial sutra was surrounded by demonic aura. The spatial barrier was completely sealed. However, the creatures that had escaped from the battlefield made Yi Xian's face extremely gloomy. Yi Xian. A majestic roar entered Yi Xian's ears. A pitch-black shadow walked out of the immortal celestial sutra and came to Yi Xian's side. The blood-red eyes in the black shadow seemed to want to devour someone. Yuanling. Looking at Yuanling's strange transformation, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. An unfathomable light flashed across his eyes. You bastard! If you had taken action earlier, how could these guys have escaped to the outside world? Yuanling roared furiously. The black aura around his body surged like a tide. Do you know that if the people of the Earth immortal world find out that the ancient battlefield still exists? Not only me, but even you will suffer a great calamity. Yuanling was extremely irritable. He reprimanded Yi Xian loudly. Give me an explanation. Yi Xian's face was expressionless. He looked straight at the blackened Yuanling. An extremely obscure killing intent appeared in his eyes. Explanation? What kind of explanation do you want? You bastard! If I hadn't saved you back then, you would have turned into a skeleton. How could you have the cultivation you have today? Yuanling shouted furiously. Buzz! There was an explosion in the void. A bloody tongtian. A cruel sneer appeared on Yi Xian's lips. Before Yuanling could react, Yi Xian struck out with his halberd. Bang! There was a loud bang. The blackened Yuanling was instantly sent flying by Yi Xian. However, before his body landed on the ground, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of him. His 5 jade-like fingers were directly clasped on the top of his head. You can't differentiate between master and servant. Do you believe that I can destroy your divine soul? An extremely mysterious bloody light enveloped Yuanling. The fine blood-red lightning surrounded Yuanling. It was as if Yi Xian would take his life in the next moment. You want to be ungrateful. Yuanling's anger dissipated. His voice trembled slightly. Chapter 54. Humph. Yi Xian sneered. Although I don't know what your goal is, we're just making use of each other. Don't make yourself sound so righteous. After the last layer of window paper was torn apart by Yi Xian, the elemental spirit completely calmed down. A complicated expression appeared on its face as it looked at Yi Xian. What do you want to know? Yuanling asked in a low voice. Who is Yuan Mo? What is this Blood Sea battlefield? Who are those blood souls that escaped? Why did you choose me? A series of questions came out of Yi Xian's mouth. He looked straight at Yuanling, trying to see something in his eyes. Come with me. Yuanling was silent for a while. He did not look at Yi Xian but walked towards the deepest part of the Blood Sea. At the end of the Blood Sea, a bronze stone door seemed to have stood there since ancient times. There were flowers, birds, fish, insects, stars, and the universe. There were also many strange patterns carved on the bronze stone door, giving people a feeling of great vicissitudes. Yuan Mo was my previous master. This Blood Sea battlefield is actually called the Ancient Battlefield. It was where Yuan Mo and the Immortals fought 10,000 years ago. And those blood souls that escaped to the human world are the remnant souls of the Immortals after they died. After Yuanling finished speaking, she suddenly turned around to look at Yi Xian and continued, as for the fact that you were able to come here and cultivate the immortal scripture, it was also a coincidence. Yuan Mo answered Yi Xian's questions one by one, but Yi Xian could feel that Yuan Mo must have a great secret that he did not reveal to him. Is Yuan Mo still alive? Yi Xian asked in a low voice. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Yuan Ling shook his head and smiled bitterly. Even though the immortal scripture is an ancient demonic art, Yuan Mo's soul has long been destroyed in that ancient war. Yi Xian, you should know that as the weapon spirit of the immortal scripture, I have been guarding this place for 10,000 years. I have been waiting for a person who can inherit the immortal scripture to appear, and you are the person I have chosen. Yuan Ling said with certainty. This door leads to the earthly immortal dimension, and it has been sealed for 10,000 years. If you want to advance in your cultivation, then you can only push open this door and head to the boundlessly vast earthly immortal dimension. This is my mission of guarding this place. Yuan Ling's voice became extremely solemn. Although these blood souls were immortals when they were alive, their power has long ceased to exist. This time, they have escaped to the human world and will definitely cause chaos. When they rebuild their bodies and recover their cultivation, they will definitely open this door and return to the earth immortal world. At that time, the fact that you cultivate the immortal scripture will also be exposed to the earth immortal world. Yuan Ling continued to explain the importance of this, but Yi Xian did not speak for a long time. I want to return to the human world. Aren't you coming with me? Yi Xian asked in a low voice before leaving. My mission is to guard this place. If I leave with you, no one will be able to seal this broken spatial barrier. At that time, this ancient battlefield will be exposed to the human world. Yuan Ling said in a low voice. Yi Xian took a deep look at Yuan Ling, and an obscure murderous intent quietly disappeared. He did not say anything and turned to go back the way he came. Looking at Yi Xian's back, Yuan Ling's aura became deathly still. When Yi Xian disappeared from the Blood Sea battlefield, Tong Tian black gas suddenly erupted from his body, as if suppressing something. Buzz! All of a sudden, the void buzzed and ripples spread out. A blood-colored phantom quietly appeared beside the origin spirit, and a dark and obscure aura slowly bloomed from this phantom. He has begun to suspect, the blood-red shadow said in a heavy voice. Yuan Ling slowly shook his head and said, so what if he suspects? Sooner or later, he will push open this door. After spending 4 years together, I understand him very well. Although he cares about the so-called family ties in the mortal world, compared to the great path to heaven, they are nothing more than fleeting clouds. Today, you have exposed your true body, and your aura has already leaked. Moreover, if these remnant souls escape to the human world, I am afraid it will attract the attention of the earth immortal realm. The blood-red shadow reminded. Ha! Yuan Ling laughed coldly and said, everything is going according to our plan. If we don't release these remnant souls into the human world, how can we quickly force him to open this door? You are too arrogant. You are not the immortal scripture's device spirit, and his heaven-destroying halberd has already recognized him as its master. Moreover, he has cultivated this forbidden technique to a very high level. If there is any mistake, I am afraid you and I will end up very miserable. The blood-red shadow growled. You are too careful. He has only cultivated for 4 years and is not even an immortal. Everything is under our control. Yuan Ling said with certainty. Not in the material world, not in the void. Yi Xian's current state was very strange. It was as if he did not exist in the world at all, and the conversation between Yuan Ling and the blood-red shadow was all heard by him. Interesting. Yi Xian sneered and whispered. Looking at the Tongtian devil qi that was blooming around Yuan Ling and this unfamiliar blood-red shadow, Yi Xian did not know what Yuan Ling's real intention was, but the scene now had already made some guesses in his heart. What the Yuan Ling didn't know was that Yi Xian had long since mastered all of the cultivation techniques in the immortal scripture. Other than the fact that his cultivation level hadn't increased, the various forbidden secret techniques in the immortal scripture could be said to be at his fingertips. Yi Xian had always believed in one sentence, the people who can hurt you will always be the people close to you. Although this sentence was a bit extreme, at this moment, it was very good proof. In fact, When Yi Xian cultivated the immortal scripture to a high level, he had already discovered that Yuan Ling was not the artifact spirit of the immortal scripture at all, but an existence in the state of a remnant soul. This matter had always been in Yi Xian's heart, and he had never revealed to Yuan Ling how far he had cultivated the immortal scripture. Interesting, very interesting. Let me see who will win in this game. Yi Xian smiled cruelly. His body suddenly became illusory, and he truly disappeared from the bloody battlefield. Yi Xian's heart was very big, to the point that it was unimaginable. He wanted the world to be destroyed, but he would not be destroyed, and all living things would die, but he would not die. He wanted to truly ascend to the 9 heavens and look down on all living things. Yi Xian did not open this door. Although he was worried about his family in the mortal world, the main reason was his doubts about Yuan Ling. From the moment Yi Xian stepped into the bloody battlefield, Yuan Ling instilled in him the idea that if he wanted to pursue the Tongtian Dao, he had to open this door and enter the earth immortal realm. Only then could he truly transcend the mortal world and become an immortal with the same lifespan as the heavens. Yi Xian only knew what was behind this door from Yuan Ling. Moreover, Yi Xian had always believed in one thing. In the face of unknown danger, he would be cautious. Only when he completely grasped the initiative, would he attack like thunder, and would not show any mercy. During these 4 years, Yi Xian had struggled between life and death, and fought in the bloody sea. He had grown from an inexperienced youth to an immortal heavenly lord. He especially cherished this hard-won opportunity. Yi Xian had once sworn to the heavens that his future would not be controlled by anyone. If anyone wanted to control his fate, the only outcome was death. No one was an exception. Chapter 55. Jiangnan City, Biyun Pavilion. Yi Xian was sitting on a soft sofa, watching a rerun of the program on TV. There was no sadness or joy on his face, so no one could tell what he was thinking. However, the occasional frown proved that Yi Xian's heart was not calm. On the TV screen, an extremely rare meteor shower streaked across the sky from east to west. The blood-red meteor was extremely dazzling, causing the host to shout excitedly. He kept making up stories, saying that the meteor shower that appeared this time was a spectacle that was hard to come by in 1,000 years. Yi Xian turned off the TV and narrowed his eyes. He had watched this rerun of the program 3 times in a row. Others did not know what this meteor shower was, but Yi Xian was sure that this meteor shower was the blood souls and strange beasts that had escaped from the Blood Sea battlefield. The scene broadcast on TV was only the tip of the iceberg. He was afraid that these strange beasts and blood souls had already been lurking in the dark all over the world. The world is going to change. Yi Xian whispered. According to Yi Xian's original idea, these blood souls and strange beasts would definitely bring earth-shaking changes to the world when they appeared in the mortal world. For the peace of his family, these blood souls and strange beasts naturally had to be exterminated. However, when Yi Xian learned of Yuan Ling's conspiracy, this idea disappeared. According to Yi Xian's guess, he had already become a thorn in the side of these blood souls because he cultivated the immortal scripture. When they devoured enough flesh and blood essence, they would definitely come to find trouble with him. As the cultivation of these blood souls gradually recovered, they would naturally give him great pressure. This was also what Yuan Ling wanted to see. He wanted to force him to open the door and take the crucial step to become a legendary immortal. Immortal. What a tempting word. Even Yi Xian had an irresistible reason when faced with this word. However, Yi Xian was not stupid. How could Yuan Ling's plan be just to make him an immortal? He was afraid that when he opened the door, something terrible would definitely happen. Before he knew what Yuan Ling's real purpose was, Yi Xian would never step into his trap. Immortal cultivation was about cultivating one's fate and going against the heavens. One wrong step and the whole game would be lost. The consequence of losing was naturally the destruction of the spirit and the death of the body and the Tao. Yi Xian wouldn't arrogantly think that he was the main character of the world, that he had some sort of domineering aura, that all calamities wouldn't befall him, and that all living things would bow down to him. If he really thought so, it would be impossible for him to have his current cultivation. Yi Xian was lost in contemplation and was constantly planning his future. First, the appearance of the blood-soul beasts in the mortal world would definitely cause chaos. However, the life and death of the people had nothing to do with him. He only needed to ensure the safety of his family. That was enough. Second, Yi Xian clearly remembered that a few of the blood souls were extremely powerful. If Yi Xian wanted to find them, he could only find out what had happened in the ancient battlefield from them. A series of steps took shape in Yi Xian's mind. A cruel smile appeared on the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. When he looked in the direction of Heartbreak Mountain, a cold and brutal killing intent quietly flashed across his eyes. Unknowingly, Yi Ling came to Yi Xian's side and shook Yi Xian's arm coquettishly. "Brother, it's the new year the day after tomorrow. Aren't you going to take your good sister to buy some New Year goods today?" Yi Xian's thoughts turned. He smiled and said, "Let's go now. Today, I'll give you a present too. Brother, you're the best." Yi Ling's eyes lit up. She pulled Yi Xian's arm and walked out of the house. It took Yi Xian a month to return home from the Blood Sea battlefield. There were only 3 days left until the new year. Yi Xian temporarily put aside the matter of the blood-soul beasts and spent the new year with his family. That was what he needed to do now. 4S shop. All kinds of luxurious cars were parked here. Yi Ling's little face was filled with excitement. She kept looking around like a cheerful elf. "Mr. Yi, this Maserati is not only very safe, but the body is also very beautiful. The interior decoration is also top-notch. It suits Miss Ye's identity the best. You can consider it," a saleswoman said with a smile. "Buy a car." Yi Xian and his sister appeared in this 4S shop to buy a car. Although Yi Ling was only 16 years old and did not know how to drive, this did not prevent Yi Xian from giving this Maserati to his little sister as a New Year gift. I'll take this one." Yi Xian nodded. "Brother, you really want to buy it?" "But I don't even have a driver's license." Yi Ling was slightly embarrassed, but her eyes were filled with happiness. "If you don't know how to drive, you can slowly learn. With a car, it will be much more convenient for you to go to school in the future." As Yi Xian spoke, he directly took out a gold card and handed it to the saleswoman in front of him. This also made the saleswoman's face bloom with a smile. She kept thanking Yi Xian and even took the gold card from Yi Xian to complete the transaction procedures. The scene of the siblings buying a car naturally attracted the attention of many customers. They all sighed. They did not know which family's young master and young miss came out to play, but they bought a car that cost millions just like that. The saleswoman left quickly and returned quickly with a car purchase agreement in her hand. She respectfully handed the gold card back to Yi Xian and said, "The license plate and all the procedures have been completed. Mr. Yi Xian, you only need to sign and our shop staff will send the car to your home." The saleswoman's service attitude made Yi Xian very satisfied. He directly nodded and was about to sign the car purchase agreement, but it was also at this moment that a cold and threatening female voice suddenly rang out. "Wait, I want this car." A young man and woman came to Yi Xian's side at some point in time, their bodies exuding the aura of a superior. The woman's skin was as white as snow, her eyebrows were picturesque, and her hair was like a cloud. She gave off a cold and noble beauty, but her clothes were different from ordinary people. Her clothes were made of cicada silk, somewhat similar to the women's gowns of ancient times. "I'm sorry, madam. This gentleman has already paid. You can look at other cars." The saleswoman's eyes were sharp. She could tell that the woman in front of her was not ordinary, so she hurriedly bowed and apologized. Leng Qingxue frowned slightly. As an ancient warrior and a master, she had just arrived in Jiangnan with her junior brother, so she naturally needed to find a means of transportation. The Maserati in front of her happened to be to her liking, but she did not expect that someone had already bought it. Leng Qingxue looked directly at Yi Xian and took out a gold card, giving off a strong feeling. "I'll give you double the price. Give this car to me." Looking at the woman in front of him, Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not expect to meet an ancient martial arts master in a small 4S shop. "I'm not selling." Although the other party was an ancient martial arts master, in Yi Xian's eyes, she was no different from an ant. How could he give the gift he gave to his sister to someone else? Chapter 56. Yi Xian directly signed the car purchase agreement. He didn't even bother to look at Leng Qingxue. Yi Xian's attitude caused Leng Qingxue to be stunned on the spot. A trace of embarrassment and anger flashed across her face. "Senior sister, forget it, we'll just change to another car." Looking at the anger on Leng Qingxue's face, the young man was afraid that Leng Qingxue would make a move on Yi Xian and cause unnecessary trouble, so he quickly advised her. "Humph. A mere mortal who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Leng Qingxue said contemptuously and turned to leave. It was obvious that she would lose her status if she were to make a move on a mortal. "Kid, you've offended someone you shouldn't have offended. Next time when you go out, remember that this world is very big. Even if you're rich, there are some people you can't afford to offend." The young man sneered and followed Leng Qingxue. Such a scene directly made Yi Linger's face turn red with anger. She kept waving her little fists and said in dissatisfaction, "What are you so arrogant for? If it wasn't for my brother not hitting women, I would have taught you a lesson today." As Yi Linger's words fell, Leng Qingxue stopped in her tracks and slowly turned around. With a look of contempt on her face, she said, "Little girl, you should be glad that you were born in this era of peace. If it was during a war, just because of your words, you would have lost your life. All right, Linger, let's go." Yi Xian's expression was calm. He did not show any anger as he pulled Yi Linger out of the 4S shop. On the street, Yi Linger was indignant and said, "Brother, why didn't you teach this stinking woman a lesson just now?" Looking at Yi Linger's angry little face, Yi Xian chuckled and said, You still can't change this little delinquent's habit. There are too many self-righteous people in this world. If you don't like everyone, do you have to personally teach them a lesson?" In fact, in Yi Xian's eyes, although Leng Qingxue was an ancient martial arts grandmaster and a rare beauty, how could he teach her a lesson just because of a few words? The principle that Yi Xian believed in was that he would never take the words of an ant to heart. However, if he really wanted to make a move, even if you were a beautiful and peerless fairy, you could only turn into a cold corpse in Yi Xian's hands. "All right, mother should still be at work. Let's buy some gifts and visit her, then go home together," Yi Xian said with a smile. Shopping, a large amount of shopping. The Jinhua Luxury Plaza was visited by the brother and sister. When the brother and sister walked out again, they had a large number of goods in their hands. In the festive atmosphere of the new year, Yi Ling had long forgotten about the previous unhappiness. The brother and sister went straight to the hotel where Yimu was. Bohai Hotel. It was one of the 5-star hotels in Jiangnan City. Yimu was working here, doing the cleaning work in the hotel. Although Yi Xian had told his mother early to let her rest at home and that she didn't need to do this job anymore, Yimu said that she couldn't stay at home. Moreover, the colleagues in the hotel were very good to her, so she was very reluctant to leave this job. This could only make Yi Xian sigh helplessly, thinking that he would find a chance to persuade Yimu in the future. At this moment, Yi Xian and his sister directly entered the hotel. As far as the eye could see, the entire hotel was resplendent and luxurious. Under the guidance of the waiter, Yi Xian and his sister sat down by a window and ordered a few dishes. Yi Xian asked the waiter where Yimu was. "You mean Aunt Han? She's cleaning somewhere else. I'll call her for you." The waiter walked away quickly, but there was obvious doubt on his face. Those who could come to the Bohai Hotel to spend money were not only high officials and dignitaries, but also rich people. He also didn't understand the relationship between Yi Xian and Yi Mu. Time passed by quickly. When Yi Xian's dishes were served, half an hour had passed, and Yi Xian didn't see Yi Mu, which made Yi Xian feel a little strange. Bohai Hotel, Hall of Flowers. Crack. The sound of glass shattering could be heard, mixed with an extremely angry voice. How do you do things? I'm sorry, manager. I will definitely compensate this young lady. Compensate? How are you going to compensate? Miss Leng doesn't need your compensation. Miss Leng, I'm really sorry. Today is the fault of my hotel staff. Please forgive me. The hotel manager kept bowing and apologizing to Leng Qingxue. Yi Mu stood aside with a pale face, apologizing to Leng Qingxue again and again. Leng Qingxue's face was cold. Her clothes made of natural silk had a big oily color, which was obviously caused by Yi Mu's tableware. Miss Leng, I'm really sorry. Why don't you change your clothes first, and then we'll talk? Zhuo Junting looked embarrassed, but still said politely to Leng Qingxue. Miss Zhuo, if it were ordinary clothes, it would be fine. But the one my senior sister is wearing is the Leng family's treasure, the 100-year heavenly cicada robe. Do you know the true value of this robe? The young man beside Leng Qingxue said unhappily. Miss, how much is this robe? I can compensate you in full. Yi Mu's face was full of shame. Compensate? The young man's face was extremely cold. He said, it's made of the 100-year heavenly cicada robe. It's invulnerable. Tell me, how are you going to compensate me for this treasure? How are you going to compensate me? Hearing the young man's words, Yi Mu's lips turned white. There was panic in her eyes, but she still said uneasily, don't worry, I'll call now. No matter how much it is, we will compensate you. Get lost. The young man was furious. He suddenly hit Yi Mu with his palm. Yi Mu's body was thrown away, and she spat out a large amount of blood. Obviously, the young man's attack had the intention of taking Yi Mu's life. Forget it. She's just a mortal. Don't bother with her. Leng Qingxue frowned. Manager Li, call her family and send her to the hospital. The Zhuo family will cover all the expenses. Although Zhuo Junting was dissatisfied with the young man's ruthless attack, she also knew that in the eyes of these ancient martial arts families, the lives of mortals were not really in their eyes. At the same time, Yi Xian was chatting with Yi Ling. Suddenly, Yi Xian felt a great pain in his soul. This also made Yi Xian suddenly stand up and release an extremely terrifying divine sense. Mother and son were connected by heart. When Yi Xian's mother was severely injured, Yi Xian immediately showed a great abnormality. The aura around his body instantly became cold. Buzz. When Yi Xian's divine sense spread out, it directly showed the scene of Yi Mu's injury. He also saw Zhuo Junting, Leng Qingxue, and the others in the 100 Flowers Blossom Hall. Boom! The heaven and earth shook. Yi Xian took a step forward. In Yi Ling's horrified eyes, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared in front of her. This made Yi Ling extremely shocked. She could not believe her eyes. Chapter 57. In the 100 Flowers Blooming Hall. Mother Ye's face was as pale as paper and blood kept flowing out of the corner of her mouth. However, Mother Yi had taken the Yun spirit pill before and the medicinal effect had not completely dissolved. It was also because of the Yun spirit pill that Mother Ye's life was saved. Miss Leng, today, boom. Before Zhuo Junting could express her goodwill to Leng Qingxue again, there was an earth-shattering explosion. The door of the 100 Flowers Blooming Hall was shattered and wood chips were flying in the air. Yi Xian's aura was cold as he entered the 100 Flowers Blooming Hall. Mr. Yi? Yi Xian's sudden appearance and the terrifying scene caused Zhuo Junting's expression to change drastically. She immediately stood up, but when she saw Yi Xian's ferocious face, an extremely bad feeling arose in her heart. Without even looking at Zhuo Junting, Yi Xian went straight to Mother Yi. Under the observation of his divine sense, he found that Mother Ye's aura was weak and she had one foot in hell. His palm swept through the air and a fiery red pill appeared in his hand. Yi Xian quickly fed it to Mother Yi until there was a trace of color on her face. Yi Xian was relieved. "Who are you? Who let you in?" The hotel manager was stunned at first and then directly questioned Yi Xian. Boom! The air exploded and Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of the hotel manager before he could finish speaking. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was an extremely violent look in his eyes. Bang! His 5 fingers were like a mountain, destroying everything. Blood, beautiful blood. When Yi Xian's palm landed, the hotel manager's head directly exploded. A headless corpse fell to the ground and dyed the gorgeous floor red. Mr. Yi. W. Who is she to you? Zhuo Junting's body trembled slightly and her face was pale. If she still couldn't see the relationship between Yi Xian and Mother Yi, she would probably call herself an idiot. Today, you all must die. Yi Xian's murderous intent soared to the heavens, and a tyrannical blood-red light slowly rose around him. When he opened his eyes, it was as if the god of the underworld was opening his eyes. That overwhelming murderous intent shook the void, causing Zhuo Junting to retreat continuously. A great sense of terror rose in her heart. A dragon had a reverse scale. Touching it would incur its wrath. Why did Yi Xian return to the human world? Yi Xian's mother's kindness in raising him and his filial piety as a son, Yi Xian's mother carried him for 10 months and raised him with great difficulty. She was Yi Xian's biggest taboo. Today, someone had violated Yi Xian's taboo. No matter who they were, whether they had anything to do with this matter or not, their only fate was death. It's you. When he saw Yi Xian's face, the young man who traveled with Leng Qingxue cried out in surprise. His eyes were filled with shock. Thud, thud, thud. The earth trembled and the void exploded. When Yi Xian walked step by step towards the young man, the entire Bohai Hotel shook violently. The surrounding walls quickly cracked as if they were about to collapse at any time. Not good. He's a Xiantian realm martial artist. Seeing such a scene, Leng Qingxue finally couldn't sit still. Panic appeared on her delicate face and a deep sense of fear appeared in her eyes. She no longer had the image of an ice goddess. At this moment, the young man wanted to escape from this place, but he was horrified to find that his body was no longer under his control. He was rooted to the spot as if there was a mountain pressing down on him, making him unable to move his fingers. Yi Xian's face was cruel and ruthless. A tyrannical grin appeared at the corner of his mouth. He raised his jade-like palm and drew a dazzling blood-red light in the void. The dazzling blood-red light lingered in the void, accompanied by the miserable howls of thousands of ghosts. 1,000 ghosts devouring soul technique. Yi Xian's voice was very soft, but when his voice sounded, the young man's eyes widened and his teeth chattered. It was as if a voice in his heart was telling him that his fate would be extremely miserable. Woo! A gust of chilly wind swept across the void. Suddenly, ghostly shadows climbed out of the void. The mournful howls became more and more terrifying. While everyone was still in shock and fear, the ghostly shadows seemed to have found food. They all pounced on the young man with horrifying howls. No! Such a horrifying scene made the young man cry out in despair. Crack! Crack! An extremely terrifying thing happened. As the young man cried and begged for mercy, the countless ghostly shadows kept tearing at his flesh. The pale white bones gradually appeared before Zhuo Junting and Leng Qingxue's eyes. Woo! The chilly wind blew and the ghosts howled. In less than a minute, the young man no longer had any signs of life. Only a huge white skeleton appeared in the 100 Flowers blooming hall. Everything was dead silent. Heaven and earth were silent. When the two women saw this scene, they both fell to the ground. Even though Ling Qingxue was an ancient martial arts grandmaster with great strength, she felt extremely helpless in the face of such a strange method. 1,000 Ghosts Devouring Soul Technique. This was an extremely cruel secret technique. Not only could it devour the flesh and blood of living creatures, but even the soul would become food for the ghosts. In the end, the soul would be scattered and never reincarnated. You're not an ancient martial artist. Who are you? Ling Qingxue trembled as she spoke. She had already discovered this terrible fact. How could an ancient martial artist have such ability? Ancient martial artist? Yi Xian smiled cruelly and slowly shook his head. Who am I? You don't have the right to know. Now it's your turn. The ghosts were howling and the chilly wind was whistling. Yi Xian walked slowly towards Ling Qingxue. He seemed to have turned into an ancient taotai, ready to swallow Ling Qingxue in one gulp. No. Don't come over. Ling Qingxue screamed in horror. Her limp body kept retreating. She looked at Yi Xian with despair in her eyes. Buzz! Yi Xian stretched out his palm. Before Ling Qingxue could react, an extremely terrifying suction force acted on her body. Her whole body flew into the air and was directly sucked in front of Yi Xian. Under Ling Qingxue's fearful eyes, Yi Xian's jade-like palm slowly brushed her cheek. From top to bottom, he brushed her proud body one by one. What a seductive woman. It's a pity that she's going to die here today. Yi Xian's voice was like a devil's whisper. His palm brushed across every part of Ling Qingxue's skin, making the woman's hair stand on end. It was as if she had fallen into hell. Bang! His palm and fingers were like clouds. With a loud explosion, Ling Qingxue's 100-year heavenly cicada robe, which she regarded as a treasure, was directly torn apart by Yi Xian's palm, revealing some of her body. Pfft! Ling Qingxue coughed out a mouthful of blood. Several of her ribs were broken. The extreme pain made her groan. Her body was exposed, but she had no time to cover it up. In the face of life and death, she couldn't care less about these things. No. Don't kill me. I'm from the Ling family of Taiwan. If you kill me, the Ling family will not let you go. Ling Qingxue cried out loudly. Crack. A crisp sound came from the throat. Before Ling Qingxue could finish her words, Yi Xian directly broke her neck. Then, he threw her body to the ground like a piece of garbage. The twitching body was extremely terrifying. Rest in peace. Your Ling family will be wiped out soon. They will soon go down to accompany you. Yi Xian's intention was to wipe out the entire family. Chapter 58. It was like the underworld, an Azura slaughterhouse. Pale white bones, headless corpses, and the air was filled with a thick stench of blood that made people want to vomit. Zhuo Junting was very scared. She was very scared. When she saw the scene in front of her, her soul seemed to leave her body. She could not believe what she was seeing. Dong, dong, dong. A series of heavy footsteps came. Yi Xian slowly walked towards her. This also made Zhuo Junting quickly come to her senses. She staggered backward. Yi. Mr. Yi. You want to kill me? Zhuo Junting said in a trembling voice. Looking at the frightened Zhuo Junting, Yi Xian slowly shook his head. There was no pity in his eyes. If I did not appear at the right time today, wouldn't my mother have died in vain? Yi Xian's tyrannical mood had already calmed down, but his voice was still cold and emotionless. Go in peace. I'll leave your corpse intact. Yi Xian pointed his sword and a ray of sword energy formed between his fingers. It was as if he would kill Zhuo Junting in the next moment. Xian. Little Xian. Don't kill anyone. Suddenly, without waiting for Yi Xian to act ruthlessly, Yi Xian's extremely weak voice came from behind him. This also made Yi Xian's expression change. He looked deeply at Zhuo Junting and waved his sword energy away. Then, he came to Yi Xian's mother's side. Mom, let's go home. He bent over and picked up Yi Xian's mother. Under Zhuo Junting's lifeless gaze, Yi Xian also disappeared from the 100 Flowers blooming hall. The Bohai Hotel was in chaos. Countless dining customers scrambled to escape because the entire Bohai Hotel was experiencing a strong earthquake. However, when these customers escaped the hotel, they found that everything was normal. The so-called earthquake seemed to be an illusion. Yi Linger stood outside the hotel. Her face was full of anxiety. Although she was surprised that Yi Xian suddenly disappeared, she was even more worried about where Yi Xian went. This big brother of hers was really too mysterious. Ling, let's go home. At some point, Yi Xian suddenly appeared beside Yi Linger with Mother Yi in his arms. When Yi Linger saw that Mother Yi was unconscious with blood at the corner of her mouth, she had no time to care about Yi Xian's mysteriousness. She immediately asked anxiously, Mom, what's wrong? Something happened. Fortunately, it's not life-threatening, Yi Xian said solemnly. Brother, let's go to the hospital. There's no need. Even the hospital can't save him. I have my ways. After Yi Xian finished speaking, he casually hailed a taxi and the family headed straight home. Biyun Pavilion, Yi Xian's home. Yi Xian's palms danced in the air. Streaks of blood-red light filled the air and continuously poured into Mother Yi, who was lying on the bed. Only when the broken bones in Mother Ye's chest recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye and her breathing began to become even did Yi Xian stop. The heavy stone in his heart was quietly lifted. From the beginning to the end, Yi Linger had been watching Yi Xian cast spells to save her mother. Her eyes were filled with surprise from time to time. She felt that the big brother in front of her was extremely strange. Brother, who are you? Yi Linger said uneasily. Little sister, this world is very, very big. There are many things that you don't understand. When the time is right, I will naturally tell you, Yi Xian said calmly. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Yi Linger nodded and said, Brother, is mother okay? Many of her bones are broken and her internal organs are injured. Fortunately, I treated her in time. Now, she is not in danger. Her body is a little weak. You stay here and take care of her. I will go out to do something. Yi Xian said to his little sister and directly walked out of the house. Jiangnan's hanging mirror department. Lu Jundai frowned as she stared at Yi Xian in front of her. A trace of shame and anger flashed across her eyes. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have the support of the Wu and department. Also, I am not your subordinate. What right do you have to order me around? Lu Jundai said angrily. Yi Xian looked at Lu Jundai calmly. He tapped his fingers on the table and said, I don't want to talk too much with you. I am now ordering you as the guest of the Wu and department. No matter what method you use, find out everything about the Leng family of Tai and. Impossible. Lu Jundai slammed the table and stood up. Yi Xian slowly got up. A cruel smile appeared on his face. He walked out of the office. However, his cold voice echoed in Lu Jundi's ears. You can try and see what will happen if you don't listen to my orders. Seeing Yi Xian disappear, Lu Jundi's eyes turned red. Her eyes were filled with tears because Yi Xian had gone too far. Crack. The glass on the desk was shattered by Lu Jundai. You despicable bastard. Lu Jundai roared in anger. After venting her anger, Lu Jundai calmed down completely. She knew that Yi Xian was a cold-blooded person. There was nothing that he did not dare to do. Lu Jundai picked up the phone and dialed. Azure Dragon's voice came from the other end of the phone. Hello, what is it? Lu Jundai quickly recounted everything that happened at the Bohai Hotel. She also told him that Yi Xian had ordered her to investigate the Leng family. This made Azure Dragon on the other end of the phone silent for a long time. The Leng family is an ancient martial arts family. This is a serious matter. Don't do anything for now. Let me talk to Mr. Yi first. Azure Dragon said seriously and hung up the phone. At the same time, in the Zhuo family, Elder Zhuo's face was solemn. There was panic in his eyes. Zhuo Junting stood in front of him with her eyes lowered. It was as if she had made a grave mistake. Junting, I've watched you grow up. I've always had high hopes for you. But this time, you've disappointed me. Elder Zhuo scolded coldly. Grandpa, shut up. Elder Zhuo paced back and forth in the living room. Then, he suddenly looked at Zhuo Junting and said, I've told you before. This Mr. Yi is not an ordinary person. He only has a mother and a sister. You don't even know his mother. How can I trust you with the Zhuo family? Grandpa, I was wrong. But it has happened. What should we do? Zhuo Junting said with a pale face. What should we do? Elder Zhuo's face was gloomy. There was a struggle in his eyes. It was obvious that he was making a decision. In fact, the reason why Ling Qingxue came to Jiangnan City was that Elder Zhuo had paid a lot of money to the Ling family to find out the truth about him being haunted by ghosts. Originally, Elder Zhuo wanted to visit Yi Xian in person. Firstly, he wanted to get closer to him. Secondly, he wanted to ask Yi Xian to help him find the real culprit. However, Yi Xian's whereabouts were erratic and he was often not at home. He did not have the chance to visit him. That was why Ling Qingxue came to Jiangnan City. But now, Ling Qingxue had died in Jiangnan City. As the inviters, the Zhuo family had an unshirkable responsibility. When the Leng family found out about this, they would definitely punish the Zhuo family. The Zhuo family could not bear the consequences. Now, Elder Zhuo only had two choices. First, he could quickly tell the Leng family about this and push all the blame to Yi Xian. This was the only way to protect the Zhuo family. Second, he could completely offend the Leng family and completely stand on Yi Xian's side to make up for Zhuo Junting's mistake. This could also ease the relationship between the Zhuo family and Yi Xian. This was a choice that concerned the survival of the Zhuo family. How could Elder Zhuo not be troubled? Dad, we can't offend the Leng family. In my opinion, we should quickly tell the Leng family about this, Zhuo Wenbin suggested. No, this Mr. Yi saved our father's life. If we do that, wouldn't it be too dishonorable? Zhuo Wenshan refuted. Brother, we can't afford to offend the Leng family. Do you want to see the Zhuo family destroyed? Zhuo Wenbin scolded coldly. Enough, I'm not dead yet. What are you guys arguing about? Elder Zhuo scolded his two sons angrily. Then, he said in a low voice, I'll personally visit this Mr. Yi tonight. As for what to do, we'll talk about it when I come back. Chapter 59. Yi Xian was currently in a bad mood. He was truly in a good mood. When Yi Xian was in a bad mood, only slaughter could calm his tyrannical mood. However, he suppressed this emotion for the time being. Although Ling Qingxue and the others were killed by him, the matter wasn't over yet. Just like Yi Xian said, not only did Yi Xian want to kill her, he also wanted to exterminate the entire family behind her. However, Yi Xian's mother's injury was a wake-up call for Yi Xian. He finally realized that his family's safety could not be guaranteed without him by their side. Moreover, the blood-soul strange beast was dormant in the mortal world. Although there was no movement now, it would break out sooner or later. Giving his family some means to protect themselves was what he should do. Prepare for a rainy day and be vigilant in times of peace. Yi Xian thought for a long time and finally came up with a way that was not a way. Refining weapons and setting up formations. As a cultivator, Yi Xian's ability to refine weapons and set up formations was absolutely second to none. However, even the cleverest housewife could not cook without rice. Although Yi Xian had the ability to refine weapons and set up formations, the materials for refining weapons and setting up formations were very difficult to find. This was also a problem that troubled Yi Xian. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed through Yi Xian's mind. The materials used for refining weapons and setting up formations were naturally all kinds of heaven and earth treasures. However, in this Dharma-ending age, heaven and earth treasures were even more difficult to find due to the lack of spiritual qi. However, there were still substitutes. Jade, the best jade. Only jade that had existed for more than 100 years could be used as a material for refining weapons and setting up formations. Although the effect would be greatly reduced, it was the only way now. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and made a decision. He took a taxi and asked the driver to go directly to the largest auction house in Jiangnan City. The dazzling auction house. It was a well-known auction house in Jiangnan City. Everything that was auctioned here was authentic and would never be adulterated. With decades of good reputation, the dazzling auction house grew bigger and bigger. In Jiangnan City, it was the only one. When it came to jade and antiques, there was an old saying, if you don't open for 3 years, open for 3 years. From this, it could be seen how profitable the antique jade market was. As for the dazzling auction house, it only auctioned twice a year. Usually, the auction house was not open to the public, but today, an extraordinary guest had arrived. Inside the auction house, Yi Xian sat lazily on the sofa. A black card was placed on the coffee table. A middle-aged man in a suit was looking at Yi Xian with a troubled expression. Mr. Yi, if you really want to buy some jade, please wait until the auction opens after the new year. This is also the rule of our dazzling auction house. Please understand. As the person in charge of the dazzling auction house, how could Gu Shangyun not recognize the black card on the table? People who could hold such a card were worth at least 1 billion yuan. However, the auction house had its own rules, and it was impossible to break them for Yi Xian. First of all, I don't have time to come again. And your so-called rules, in my opinion, are just made by someone. Yi Xian's attitude was very strong, but he was not here to find trouble. He continued, of course, I won't embarrass you. In addition to buying your jade at the normal price, I also have something to auction here. This is enough to make up for your loss. A milky white pill was casually placed on the table by Yi Xian. A fragrant aroma filled the air. This also made Gu Shangyun, who was about to refuse, suddenly stop. His eyes were filled with curiosity as he said, Mr. Yi, this is a Peiyuan pill. As long as a person is not dead, it can save their life. Yi Xian did not talk nonsense and directly explained the effect of the Peiyuan pill. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Gu Shangyun's face slightly changed. He looked at Yi Xian with a somewhat unfriendly gaze. Mr. Yi, your joke is not funny at all. Yi Xian could completely feel Gu Shangyun's unfriendly attitude. This also made him squint his eyes and said, I have never had the habit of joking. Go and call the person in charge here. I don't have time to dawdle with you. Seeing that Yi Xian was not joking, Gu Shangyun did not dare to be careless. He was afraid that Yi Xian had a great background. This also made him uncertain. He then nodded and quickly went to find the person in charge. Time passed very quickly. In less than 10 minutes, Gu Shangyun returned with a beautiful and sexy figure following behind him. Ha ha ha. Mr. Yi, is the pill you spoke of really so magical? A charming laugh seemed to be able to steal people's souls, causing endless fanciful thoughts to arise in people's hearts. Gu Wan, was wearing a hot red dress. Her delicate and enchanting face and curvy body revealed an indescribable sexiness, as if she could arouse the deepest desire in a man's heart. An ancient warrior, and an ancient martial arts master? I didn't expect a person like you to be hidden in a small Jiangnan city. Yi Xian smiled as he looked at the sexy and enchanting Gu Wan'er in front of him. He never thought that he would actually meet an ancient martial grandmaster just by buying some jade artifacts. Could it be that the ancient martial grandmasters were all rotten on the streets? As Yi Xian's voice fell, Gu Wan'er's charming smile suddenly froze. She looked at Yi Xian with great caution. Who are you? Gu Wan'er's charming smile disappeared, and her face instantly turned cold. Her red dress fluttered even though there was no wind, as if she was going to attack Yi Xian at any time. Looking at Gu Wan'er's appearance as if she was facing a great enemy, Yi Xian smiled contemptuously and said, "Don't worry, I am not your enemy, and I have no intention of investigating why there is an ancient martial arts master in a small auction house. You can see my cultivation. It seems that Mr. Yi is not ordinary. If you really just want to buy some jade, I am willing to make friends with you." Gu Wan'er withdrew her aura and said to Yi Xian in a tentative voice. "I don't want to talk nonsense. I want a lot of jade. I will buy it at the original price, and this foundation elixir is enough to make up for your loss." Yi Xian went straight to the point. He did not have time to pretend to be polite with this woman. Speaking of the main topic, Gu Wan'er took a deep look at Yi Xian, then nodded and said, "If this elixir is really as magical as you say, all of this will not be a problem." Soon, under Gu Wan'er's command, Gu Shangyun carefully scraped a little powder from the foundation elixir and fed it directly to a wounded and dying white mouse. However, in less than a minute, an extremely mystical scene appeared. The little white mouse, which was on the verge of death, actually stood up energetically. It kept squeaking in the cage, and the wounds on its body were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Such a scene made Gu Wan'er suddenly stand up from her seat. She looked at the foundation elixir on the table with great enthusiasm in her eyes. This. As a member of the Gu family, Gu Wan'er had seen all kinds of rare elixirs, but the effect of the foundation elixir made her unable to control her excitement. Chapter 60. As an ancient martial arts master, no one knew the importance of the pill better than Gu Wan'er. It was a life. Even if one had innate martial arts or unparalleled power, it was nothing compared to one's own life. 10 breaths later, Gu Wan'er finally calmed down. She directly ordered Gu Shangyun, "Go and bring all the jade items for Mr. Yi to choose from." Looking at the scene before him, Yi Xian was not surprised at all. The energy-enhancing pill was the lowest-level pill for cultivators, but in the eyes of these ancient martial artists, it was no less than the legendary elixir. However, the energy-enhancing pill was refined from the blood essence of the beasts in the Blood Sea. Although it seemed to be very effective, it had a great drawback. The lifespan of the person who took the pill would not exceed 10 years. Of course, Yi Xian would not tell her about this. Even if he did, Gu Wan'er would be a little disappointed, but she would definitely regard the pill as a treasure. After all, it was already a great blessing for a dying person to be able to live for 10 more years. Soon, all kinds of jade items were sent over. As Yi Xian picked and chose, more than 10 jade pendants and 2 jade sword pendants were taken by him. As for the other jade items, he directly ignored them. "Mr. Yi, how much is this pill? Do you still have this kind of pill?" Seeing that Yi Xian had finished choosing, Gu Wan'er held the energy-enhancing pill tightly in her hand, as if she was afraid that Yi Xian would go back on his word. "The price is up to you guys to decide. As for this pill, I obtained it by chance. It's just this one," Yi Xian said calmly. Obviously, Gu Wan'er did not believe Yi Xian. If there was only one such precious pill, how could the man in front of her be willing to auction it? However, Gu Wan'er's mind was clear, so she naturally did not continue to ask. After exchanging phone numbers with Yi Xian walked out of the auction house under Gu Wan's respectful escort. Seeing that Yi Xian had already walked far away, Gu Shangyun asked in a low voice, "Miss, should we send someone to follow him and investigate his background?" Gu shook her head with a serious look in her eyes. She said, "Don't act rashly. This man can see that I am an ancient martial grandmaster, but I can't see through his cultivation. This man is definitely above me. If others find out that we sent someone to follow him, I'm afraid there will be great trouble." "But are we really going to auction this pill?" Gu Xiangyun asked in a low voice. "How could such a precious pill be auctioned? It's just a formality. When the time comes, the pill will naturally be sent back to the family," Gu said confidently. Although Yi Xian was already far away, the conversation between the two fell clearly into his ears. Yi Xian liked to deal with smart people. There was no doubt that Gu was a smart person. She knew who she could provoke and who she could not. This made Yi Xian very satisfied with this woman. As for where the foundation elixir would go, Yi Xian did not care at all. As long as Gu could continuously provide him with jade articles, it would not matter even if he gave the foundation elixir to her. But if she was greedy and wanted to do something to him, the woman's fate would be extremely miserable. Yi Xian's principle was that what I gave you was yours. If you wanted to forcefully take what I didn't give you, then the only outcome would be death. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and went straight home. Now that he had these jade articles, although he could not set up a powerful formation, it was more than enough to ensure the safety of his family. Biyun Pavilion, Yi Xian's home. The sun was setting in the west and night fell. Mother Yi woke up early, but her face was a little pale. Apparently, her body was still a little weak, and her spirit was a little sluggish. "Ling, where is your brother?" Mother Yi asked softly. "Brother went out. He should be back soon," Yi Ling said obediently. Sigh. Mother Yi sighed with a complicated look in her eyes. In the Bohai Hotel, although she was injured and unconscious, she knew that Yi Xian had killed someone. This made her worried for Yi Xian. She was afraid that the hanging mirror department would come and put Yi Xian in jail. "Mother, are you feeling better?" The door was gently pushed open. Yi Xian entered the house with a smile and came to Mother Ye's side. "I'm fine, but Xian, Mother Yi wanted to say something but hesitated. How could Yi Xian not see the worry in Mother Ye's eyes? "Don't worry, everything has been resolved," Yi Xian comforted her. Looking at Yi Xian's smiling face, Mother Yi knew that Yi Xian had his own secrets. Since he did not tell her, if she continued to ask, it would only make things difficult for Yi Xian. Dong dong dong. A series of knocks came from outside the door, which made Yi Xian extend his consciousness. When the scene outside the door appeared in his mind, Yi Xian told Yi Ling to take care of her mother and turned to open the door. The door was opened, and Grandfather Zhuo and Zhuo Junting were standing outside. When they saw Yi Xian, Grandfather Zhuo said with shame, "We came without permission today. I hope Mr. Yi Xian will forgive us." Looking at the grandfather and granddaughter in front of him, Yi Xian's face was expressionless. It was as if he already knew that the Zhuo family would come to visit. He did not say anything and went straight to the living room. Grandfather Zhuo and Zhuo Junting quickly followed. In the living room, Yi Xian leaned on the sofa. Grandfather Zhuo and Zhuo Junting looked awkward, not knowing whether to stand or sit. In this oppressive atmosphere, Yi Xian broke the silence and said, "I don't want to ask about the relationship between the Zhuo family and that woman, and I don't want to know why you are here today." As Yi Xian spoke to hear, he took a deep look at the old man on the table and continued, "Right now, I only want to know all the information about Tai Anzling family. If you don't want to tell me, you can leave now." Yi Xian's attitude was very direct. He only gave old man Zhuo two choices. Either he told him about the Lin clan, or he left this place. This also made the excuse that old man Zhuo had prepared completely useless. Mr. Mr. Yi. Thank you for saving my life. Without waiting for old man Zhuo to finish speaking, Yi Xian waved his hand and interrupted. Back then, I sold that jade talisman to your Zhuo family for 2 million. Your Zhuo family and I don't owe each other anything. There's no need to mention this again. Obviously, Yi Xian didn't have any plans to deal with old man Zhuo. This caused old man Zhuo to frown. He didn't know if he should tell Yi Xian what kind of existence the Lin clan was. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled into a cold smile as he looked at the old man's hesitant expression. He directly ordered, I've already given you a chance. It's your table family that doesn't cherish it. You can leave now. Grandfather Zhuo wanted to say something, but when he saw Yi Xian's cold eyes, he swallowed his words. He then sighed helplessly and left the Yi family with Zhuo Junting. Brother, who are they? Yi Ling walked out of the house with a puzzled look on her face. Ha! Yi Xian's eyes narrowed as he sneered, they're just some idiots. Chapter 61. Summoning the wind and summoning the rain, casting beans to form soldiers, these were the legendary abilities of immortals. However, as an immortal cultivator, Yi Xian was able to summon the wind and summon the rain, but he did not have the ability to cast beans to form soldiers. However, it was not a problem for him to set up a large trap and kill a ray. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void, his palms turning into a circle. Streaks of blood-red runes appeared from the void, instantly merging into the jade in front of him. The 12 jade pieces emitted blood-red light, dancing and circling around him. As Yi Xian's sword finger cut through the void, the jade pieces suddenly disappeared, completely sinking into the void. Buzz! The void changed, and ripples spread out. When Yi Xian finished doing all this, the entire villa within a radius of 1,000 meters suddenly fell into a peaceful atmosphere. Only the blood-red light that was invisible to the naked eye crisscrossed, lingering in this space. Spirit Trapping Array. The array that Yi Xian set up, other than having the effect of hallucination, also had the ability to kill the enemy. The jade pieces were only a medium, the real method was the blood evil chi that was imbued into the jade pieces. The 2 jade sword pendants were originally jade green, but after Yi Xian engraved the 3 arrays, the 2 jade sword pendants directly turned blood red. Only then did Yi Xian nod his head in satisfaction. Yi Linger had been watching from the side. She had some understanding of Yi Xian's miraculous methods, so naturally, she did not show too much surprise. Yi Xian handed the jade sword pendants to his little sister and said in a serious voice, Linger, wear these 2 pendants separately with your mother. Do not let them leave your body day and night. Okay. Yi Linger obediently replied and kept the jade sword pendants. She originally wanted to say something to Yi Xian, but when she saw that Yi Xian was deep in thought, she swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. Brother, I'm going to see mother. There was a complicated look in Yi Linger's eyes. Just as she was about to silently walk out of Yi Xian's room, Yi Linger suddenly turned back to look at Yi Xian. In a hesitant voice, she said, Brother, you once said that if you were no longer here, I would take good care of mother. Will you really leave one day? Yi Xian was originally immersed in his thoughts. When Yi Linger's voice rang out, his expression suddenly froze. He then looked at his little sister with a slightly complicated gaze. After a few breaths, Yi Xian slowly shook his head and sighed. He did not answer this question. Brother, it's too late. You should rest early. Yi Linger forced a smile and quickly walked out of Yi Xian's room. Although Yi Xian did not give an answer, how could Yi Linger not see Yi Xian's attitude? Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void, the aura around him fluctuating slightly. He really wanted to tell his family that as early as 4 years ago, the former him had already died. He could no longer go back. From the moment he entered the Blood Sea battlefield, he was destined to spend his life in killing. Playing games with Yuan Ling, fighting against the heavens for his life, stepping on the bones of countless powerhouses until he ascended to the 9 heavens. This was his path, and everything in the mortal world was just a formality. In the end, he did not belong here. Ring ring ring. A series of urgent ringtones sounded. It was slightly ear-piercing in the middle of the night. When he saw that the caller was Azure Dragon, Yi Xian's eyes did not show any surprise. Hello. Yi Xian picked up the phone. Mr. Yi, Lu Jundai has already reported to me about the Leng family. I hope you can give up on this matter. Azure Dragon said bluntly. Why? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Mr. Yi, you may not know this. Although the Martial Security Department has 8 departments, most of the members are from ancient martial arts families. These families are detached from worldly affairs and have always had a cooperative relationship with the Xia country. Some of the foreign special ability organizations are also afraid of the Xia country because of the existence of these ancient martial arts families. Azure Dragon quickly said, hoping that Yi Xian would consider the big picture. Mr. Yi, although I don't know why you are investigating the Leng family has a strong foundation. No one knows if there are any Xiantian realm martial artists in the Leng family. Moreover, you have already killed Ling Qingxue. Why don't we just let this matter go? Azure Dragon continued to persuade. The ancient martial arts families were a group of interests. Since ancient times, they had been involved in every dynasty. If Yi Xian really went against the Leng family, it would be a matter of great concern. Let it go. Yi Xian smiled and said in a strange voice, I killed that woman. Even if I am willing to turn weapons of war into gifts of jade and silk, how can the Leng family let it go? If Azure Dragon saw the smile on Yi Xian's face, he would definitely be shocked. However, he thought that Yi Xian was willing to let this matter go. This made Azure Dragon anxious. Although this matter is not easy to deal with, Mr. Yi, you are a guest of my team. The Leng family will not dare to do anything to you in public. When the time comes, I will personally apologize to the Leng family and let this matter go. Apologize? Yi Xian's smile became more and more strange, and his voice suddenly became cold. There is no need for an apology. I will deal with this matter personally. Even though they were on the phone, Azure Dragon felt a chill run down his spine when he heard Yi Xian's gloomy voice. He was stunned and asked, Mr. Yi, what are you trying to do? If you hurt my mother, your entire family will be exterminated. Yi Xian casually hung up the phone, causing Azure Dragon, who was on the other end of the phone, to be stunned. Only after 10 breaths did he regain his senses and quickly call Yi Xian again. However, after waiting for a long time, Yi Xian did not pick up. Something big is going to happen. Azure Dragon trembled as he muttered to himself. After making several calls, Azure Dragon had no choice but to report this matter to the few big shots. At this moment, the Grand Marshal of China, Li Lingguo, had a calm expression as he listened to Azure Dragon's report. After 10 minutes, Li Lingguo narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, other than Yi Xian's actions that harm China, you can do anything for him in the future. If even you can't handle it, there are still us old men. Li Lingguo casually hung up the phone. His old palm continuously knocked on the table. After a long time, he muttered to himself. It's time for China's situation to change. These ancient martial arts families are arrogant. It's time for someone to teach them a lesson. After receiving Li Lingguo's reply, Azure Dragon was stunned. He could not imagine that Li Lingguo, as the Grand Marshal of China, would give such an order. However, an order was an order. Even if Azure Dragon did not understand, he could only follow Li Lingguo's orders. A series of information about the Leng family was gathered together and sent directly to Yi Xian's phone through text messages. A silent massacre was about to begin. At the same time, at Fengming Mountain, Tai An's Leng family. A simple manor stood in the middle of the mountain. The ground was paved with green mound stones and various ancient martial arts weapons were placed on it. Dozens of ancient martial arts practitioners with majestic auras were sitting cross-legged and cultivating. Some were waving their fists and legs, causing the air to explode. Chapter 62. Lin Clan's Inner Hall. A middle-aged man wearing an ancient robe sat at the head of the table. Below him were two old men sitting upright. The atmosphere in the entire inner hall was slightly oppressive, as if something was brewing. Yi Xian, the head of the Lin clan, muttered to himself. When he opened and closed his eyes, a cold killing intent flashed through them. The Zhuo clan has sent news that the young miss died at the hands of this person. Moreover, this person's identity is not simple. After our investigation, this person is a guest of the Wuan department. An old man said slowly. Qing Shui's talent is unparalleled, and she has already stepped into the ancient martial grandmaster realm at such a young age. In the future, it is very likely that she will go one step further and become a pre-celestial stage martial artist, and even allow our Lin clan to rise in the ancient martial world. But she died just like that. What do you think I should do? The head of the Lin clan smiled brightly, but when the two old men saw it, they couldn't help but shiver. Patriarch, this person is a guest of the Wuan department. We should think twice before we act. The other old man carefully advised. Bang! With a loud sound, the head of the Lin clan slammed the table and stood up. The stone table in front of him was directly smashed into pieces. The smile on his face had already disappeared, and the expression on his face was even more ferocious and frightening. My daughter is dead, she's dead. What guest of the Wuan department? My Lin clan also has a lot of authority in the Wuan department. I don't care who he is, I will make him die without a burial ground. The head of the Lin clan roared angrily, and the bluestone ground beneath his feet cracked to the extreme. Immediately inform Lin Yunfei. Within 3 days, I want all the information on this person. Not only do I want him to die, I also want his family to be buried with him. The head of the Lin clan roared furiously. The sky was filled with clouds for thousands of miles. While the head of the Lin clan was investigating Yi Xian, he did not know that a blood-red meteor had set off from Jiangnan and was shooting towards Fengming Mountain. The air trembled and ripples spread out. With every step Yi Xian took, explosive sounds could be heard from beneath his feet. His expression was very calm, so calm that it was somewhat puzzling, but the killing intent that flashed in his eyes when he opened and closed them was extremely frightening. Yi Xian understood this principle very well. If you don't remove the roots, the grass. In. As long as it was an enemy, the only outcome was death. This was Yi Xian's belief. Half a day passed. When Yi Xian appeared in the sky above Fengming Mountain, the originally cold winter weather suddenly darkened. There was even a black cloud that covered the entire Fengming Mountain. Yi is. Bang! Yi Xian stomped on the ground, shaking the mountains. The ground of the martial arts practice field cracked like a spider web. Such a frightening scene immediately made the Lin clan members in the martial arts practice field speechless. They only woke up when they saw Yi Xian. Senior brother. Did this person fall from the sky? A young warrior couldn't believe what he was seeing. He asked his senior martial brother next to him in a low voice. Don't joke. How can a person fly? The senior brother reprimanded in a trembling voice. Obviously, he did not understand how Yi Xian appeared in the Lin clan's martial arts practice field. At this moment, dozens of martial artists looked at Yi Xian. It was obvious that they hadn't recovered from their shock yet. Only when a mournful howl sounded out did they instantly recover from their shock. Chi! Sword light streaked across the sky and blood splattered. A Lin clan warrior was beheaded and turned into a cold corpse in front of the Lin clan members. Yi Xian did not waste any time. He came to the Lin clan to slaughter them. He was not in the mood to talk to these mortals. What he wanted to do was to directly slaughter them. Hua! A large number of exclamations were heard. The martial arts practice field was in a mess. Before the Lin clan warriors could do anything, Yi Xian took a step forward and the bloodthirsty demon sword appeared in his hand. Dazzling sword light spread out and began to reap the lives of the people present. Don't kill me. Who are you? Quickly inform the patriarch that a great enemy is here. Blood rained down and limbs were severed. Amidst the endless wails and screams, dozens of Lin clan warriors fled in a sorry state. However, they could not avoid the sword light slashed by Yi Xian. The martial arts practice field had turned into a slaughterhouse. Stop! Suddenly, a thunderous roar was heard. 3 figures approached from afar, followed by a large number of Lin clan warriors. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xian was surrounded. The master of the Lin family was at the peak of the Grand Master realm. He was only 1 step away from entering the primordial realm. The 2 elders beside him were also martial artists at the Grand Master realm. Although they were old, they were not to be underestimated. Who are you? How dare you kill people in my Lin clan? Looking at the corpses on the ground, the patriarch of the Lin clan looked gloomy, but there was a hint of fear in his eyes. The weakest of these Lin clan disciples was at the covert power realm, and there were as many as a dozen of them at the peak power realm. However, they were all dead in a short time. How could he not be shocked? Most importantly, the patriarch of the Lin clan discovered a terrible fact. The young man in black standing in front of him was releasing an extremely terrifying aura. The patriarch of the Lin clan was very sure that although he was an ancient martial arts grandmaster, he was definitely no match for this person. Moreover, it was very likely that this person had stepped into the primordial realm. Otherwise, how could he slaughter dozens of Lin clan warriors in an instant? Rumble. Dark clouds covered the sky and thunder rumbled. Yi Xian held the bloodthirsty demon sword and stood in the Lin clan's martial arts field. Looking at the gloomy expression of the patriarch of the Lin clan, a cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Very good. It seems that everyone is here. Yi Xian nodded slowly with a smile on his face. May I know who you are? What has my Lin clan done to offend you? If it's really my Lin clan's fault, I would like to apologize to you. As the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. When the patriarch of the Lin clan estimated that Yi Xian might be a primordial realm warrior, he immediately suppressed the killing intent in his heart and humbled himself. Patriarch, he is Yi Xian. Suddenly, an elder's pupils shrank as he cried out in horror. What? Hearing the elder's words, the patriarch of the Lin clan looked at Yi Xian abruptly. His expression was extremely ugly. He had never thought that before he had gone to look for Yi Xian had already killed his way to the Lin clan. Yi Xian looked at them indifferently. However, the way he looked at the Lin clan members was as if he was looking at dead people. Yi Xian had not only come here today to slaughter the entire clan. The hundreds of ancient martial artists present were also the best food. The blood qi in their bodies was more vigorous than that of ordinary people, which could make up for the cultivation that he had been constantly consuming during this period. In the blood sea battlefield, there were strange beasts that provided him with blood qi. Therefore, Yi Xian was able to raise his cultivation to the crossing calamity stage in just 4 years. However, after returning to the city, every time he fought, his cultivation would decrease a little. Without replenishment, if this continued for a long time, his cultivation would definitely regress. This was something that Yi Xian did not want to see. Moreover, the blood-soul strange beasts were lurking in the human world. They were gradually devouring flesh and blood to restore their strength. If Yi Xian's cultivation remained stagnant, wouldn't he suffer a great loss when he really faced these things? Yi Xian had a delusion. He wanted to become an immortal in the mortal world. In order to achieve this goal, other than opening the door and entering the so-called Earth Immortal realm, he could only continuously devour blood qi to improve his cultivation. Yi Xian really wanted to see how Yuan Ling would feel when he became an immortal in the mortal world. At that time, he would truly fall out with Yuan Ling. Chapter 63. The patriarch of the Leng clan was in a very complicated mood. He really wanted to chop Yi Xian into pieces and avenge Leng Qingxue. However, the facts in front of him told him that Yi Xian's cultivation had definitely surpassed the Grandmaster realm. Although the Leng clan had the advantage in numbers, they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered in the face of a suspected Khanate realm martial artist. When a martial artist stepped into the Khanate realm, it was a qualitative improvement. A Khanate realm martial artist could kill 10 grandmasters. From this, one could see how terrifying a Khanate realm martial artist was. Although he was angry, the master of the Leng clan did not dare to show his anger. His expression was even more uncertain. After a few breaths, a forced smile appeared on the master of the Leng clan's face. He directly cupped his hands and bowed to Yi Xian. So it's Mr. Yi. I wonder if my Leng clan has offended you in any way to make you unhappy. I'm here to apologize. People under the eaves had to bow their heads. This was the master of the Leng clan's decision. From your resentful eyes, I can see that you want to kill me. Even if you try to hide it, your eyes betrayed you, Yi Xian said indifferently. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the master of the Leng clan's heart thumped. He then continued to force a smile. Mr. Yi, you must be joking. My daughter deserved to die in your hands. How could my Leng clan dare to be angry? As the saying goes, one does not hit a smiling face. The master of the Leng clan was so humble. If Yi Xian continued to slaughter the Leng clan, it would be too much of a bully. If it were someone else, they might really leave. However, who was Yi Xian? He was the immortal heavenly lord, an existence that surpassed mortals. He believed in the strong and should do things to the extreme. Since he had decided to destroy the Leng clan, no one could go against his decision. In other words, if I'm strong enough to bully your Leng clan, what can you do? Die. These two simple words came out of Yi Xian's mouth. The bloodthirsty demon sword buzzed and shot out from Yi Xian's hand, turning into a bloody light that slashed towards the Leng clan. Under such circumstances, how could the Leng clan's patriarch not see Yi Xian's intentions? This made his expression turn ferocious, and he was already prepared to fight with his life on the line. Little bastard, even if you are a Xiantian realm warrior, do you really think that my Leng clan is afraid of you? Kill him. Since there was no room for negotiation, the master of the Leng clan did not waste his breath. Clang clang clang. The sounds of swords and sabers being unsheathed rang out incessantly. As the Leng family patriarch roared, over 100 Leng family martial artists charged towards Yi Xian without fear of death. Obviously, they had no way out. Either Yi Xian died, or the Leng family perished. Slash! Blood splashed across the sky, and sword chi exploded. Yi Xian did not move, and the smile on his face was still there. His two sword fingers shook the void, and the bloodthirsty demon sword trembled violently. With every slash, more than a dozen Leng family martial artists turned into corpses. Blood splattered everywhere, and mournful cries rang out. Over 100 Leng family martial artists fell one after another, and a large amount of blood stained the ground. This also made their eyes turn red, and they looked at Yi Xian with extreme hatred. Looking at the Leng clan's disciples dying tragically, a Leng clan elder gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. He looked at Yi Xian with an extremely crazy gaze. Yi Xian, even if this old man self-destructs here today, I won't let you have an easy time. The Leng clan elder roared crazily, and his stooped body began to swell. Like a balloon that was about to explode, he rushed towards Yi Xian crazily. Second uncle, don't. The master of the Leng clan roared in horror. Bang! His body exploded, and blood rained down. Under the Leng clan elder's self-destruction, an extremely terrifying energy burst out. Yi Xian bore the brunt of this energy and was completely submerged by it. Second grandpa. A Leng clan youth cried out loudly and knelt on the ground. Large amounts of tears flowed from his eyes. Broken limbs and blood flowed like a river. The entire martial arts practice field was completely silent. After a dozen breaths, a trembling voice came from a Leng clan martial artist. Is he dead? When a grandmaster self-destructs, his strength will increase tenfold. Even if he's a Khanate martial artist, there's no way he can survive. The master of the Leng clan scolded coldly, but there was great pain in his eyes. His beloved daughter had died tragically, and the Leng clan elder had self-destructed. The Leng clan had lost 2 grandmasters in a row. This heavy blow made the master of the Leng clan extremely distressed. Wait, he's not dead yet. Suddenly, a scream of horror was heard. The Leng clan members' expressions changed drastically, and they all looked towards the center of the martial arts practice field. When the smoke and dust dissipated, the bloody light was hazy. When Yi Xian appeared in front of the Leng clan members again, the weak-minded members of the Leng clan fell to the ground with their legs weak. They looked at Yi Xian with extreme horror. At this moment, not to mention being injured, Yi Xian's clothes didn't even have the slightest crease. It was as if the self-destruction of the Leng clan's elder didn't cause him any harm at all. This is so boring. Yi Xian stretched his arms and breathed in the bloody smell in the air. When he opened and closed his eyes, a trace of intoxication flashed across them. Let's end this. Yi Xian finally began to feel bored, and his voice became cold and cruel. Boom! He took a step forward and stepped into the sky. The sound of an explosion came from the void. Under the horrified gazes of the Leng clan members, Yi Xian sat cross-legged high in the sky, and a hazy bloody light slowly bloomed around his body. He's not an ancient warrior, he is. Looking at this scene, the master of the Leng clan's face turned pale, and his teeth chattered. An ancient legend appeared in his mind. An ancient legend. Are there immortals in this world? Who passed down the ancient martial arts to this world? All things have spirits, and humans are the leaders. They collect the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and absorb the essence of the sun and moon. They can overturn mountains with a raise of their hands, and they can overturn seas with a wave of their hands. These people have a general name, immortal cultivators. Ancient martial arts, obvious strength, hidden strength, transforming strength, and grandmaster. These were just small paths for mortals. Only by stepping into the innate stage could one peek into the legendary immortal cultivators. The so-called innate stage warriors, according to the ancient records, were only at the beginning of immortal cultivation. This stage also had another name, Qi refining stage. There were 9 stages of innate stage and 9 stages of Qi refining stage. Only by breaking through to the innate stage could one be called a true immortal cultivator. However, in the current world, there was no spiritual energy in the world, and innate stage warriors were extremely rare, not to mention the existence that surpassed innate stage warriors. However, the patriarch of the Leng clan looked up at Yi Xian, who was high up in the sky. His entire soul seemed to have left his body. He already had an extremely bold guess. He was afraid that the person who wanted to destroy his Leng clan was a legendary cultivator. Run, all of you run. As long as there's one person in the Leng clan alive, quickly tell the entire ancient martial arts world that the legendary immortal cultivator has appeared. The master of the Leng clan's face was pale. He turned around and shouted at the Leng clan members. He did not have the slightest intention to resist Yi Xian, and his entire body flew down the mountain. Chapter 64. Although the disciples of the Leng family did not know what the family head meant by cultivators, the family head had already escaped. Moreover, the mysterious figure in the sky was so terrifying that no one wanted to die. Naturally, they fled in all directions like birds. Escape? Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void and looked down at the fleeing warriors of the Leng family. A cruel smile appeared on his face. Do you think you can escape? Yi Xian said softly. Heaven swallowing array of 10 directions. Like a thunderclap from the ninth heaven, it was as if the stars in the sky were exploding. When Yi Xian's voice sounded, an extremely terrifying thing happened. Rumble. Blood-red light filled the sky and runes filled the air. When Yi Xian's palm and fingers struck out, this part of the world was immediately sealed. A blood-red cloud thousands of feet high formed in the sky. Within the blood-red cloud, there were countless blood-red lightning bolts crisscrossing. Kill. Crack. Endless blood-red and terrifying lightning bolts fell at this moment. The mountain was exploding and the mountains were shaking. The fleeing warriors of the Leng family were blasted into pieces by the blood-red lightning bolts. A large amount of blood mist drifted in the mountains and extremely miserable screams were heard. No. I don't want to die. What is this? He's not human, rumble. Lightning bolts flashed across the sky and the blood-red light was biting cold. The massacre continued and the living beings were screaming. Yi Xian was surrounded by a hazy blood-red light. He sat cross-legged in the sky and looked down at everything in front of him indifferently. Heaven swallowing a ray. Like a giant whale drinking water or a long river flowing backward, when Yi Xian opened and closed his eyes, it was as if there were two blood-red stars rotating in his eyes. Billowing blood qi surged towards Yi Xian until his body was submerged. Only then did the world calm down. Swallowing blood qi, consolidating his body, and constantly improving his cultivation. This was what Yi Xian was doing now. Half a day passed. The blood-red light around Yi Xian slowly dissipated. He spat out a mouthful of turbid air, causing an explosion in the air. When he opened his eyes, a sharp blood-red light burst out, giving people a feeling that they did not dare to look directly at him. The blood qi of hundreds of ancient martial artists has directly made up for my deficit over the past few days. The cultivation in my body has increased slightly. It seems that it's not impossible to become an immortal in the mortal world. Yi Xian muttered to himself with an indescribable expression in his eyes. At this moment, the entire Fengming mountain was dead silent. The huge Leng clan was also burned to the ground. Yi Xian walked slowly in the air until he landed halfway up the mountain. Looking at the broken limbs on the ground, there was not the slightest fluctuation in his eyes. Still not coming out. Suddenly, Yi Xian spoke softly and looked directly at one of the caves. Unfortunately, after Yi Xian finished speaking, there were no strange noises in the surroundings. This made Yi Xian shake his head slowly and say, "Or do you want me to find you?" "No. Don't kill me." Suddenly, a trembling voice came from within the cave. A youth dressed in the Leng clan's uniform crawled out of the cave. He looked at Yi Xian with extreme fear in his eyes. "You're still a child." Looking at the other party's young and tender face, Yi Xian's eyes were in a trance, as if he was thinking back to 4 years ago, when he was as helpless as him. If it wasn't for Yuan Ling who molded him, he wouldn't be where he was today. Don't kill me. I'm not from the Leng clan." The youth's face was pale, and his tender face was filled with fear. "What's your name?" Yi Xian asked softly. Lord, my name is Leng Wuge. I'm just a servant of the Leng clan." The youth trembled. "Yes." Yi Xian nodded and walked in front of the youth. His sparkling and translucent palm continuously stroked the youth's hair bun. His voice was as gentle as jade as he said, "You can go in peace. I will leave your corpse intact." Bang! Under the force of Yi Xian's palm, the youth's eyes lost focus. He stared at Yi Xian in front of him. He never thought that Yi Xian would really kill him. Why? The youth asked unwillingly as he was dying. "Although you hid it very well, I saw something in your eyes. And this thing is called hatred," Yi Xian said indifferently. There was a trace of sadness in his eyes. There are only 2 kinds of people who are the most terrifying in the world. The first kind are people who love the world. They set their hearts for the world and their lives for the people. They inherit the lost knowledge of the past saints and bring peace to the world. This kind of person cares about the world and benefits the people. They are also saints. The second kind are people who hate the world. They hate the world for being unfair and hate the heartless world. With hatred in their hearts, they can turn the world upside down. This kind of person is even more terrifying than the first kind. Yi Xian didn't know if he was talking to the youth or himself. At this moment, his aura was slightly lonely and bleak. Although you are not the second kind of person, how can I let you live when you have hatred in your heart? Yi Xian said softly. The youth's eyes had already lost focus. He turned into a cold corpse and fell to the ground. The wind was light and the clouds were clear. A light breeze blew, causing Yi Xian's hair to flutter. He looked at the vast mountains in the distance. There was endless loneliness and vicissitudes in his eyes. Yi Xian asked himself, what kind of person was he? His thoughts were in a trance. He asked himself, but he didn't get the answer he wanted. Yi Xian believed that he was a heartless person. Even though he was a weak youth, he didn't hold back and killed him on the spot. He had already abandoned his humble heart of pity. This was not the result he wanted. However, 4 years of killing had made Yi Xian understand a principle. The strong were as heavy as mountains, while the weak crawled like ants. This was a world where the strong were always strong. Only by throwing away his pity and pushing his way through could he truly be free in this world. The youth's death didn't affect Yi Xian at all. It only made him sigh. If he had spared the youth's life today, would the youth seek revenge in the future? Yi Xian wasn't afraid of the youth seeking revenge. However, the youth would have to live in hatred for the rest of his life. This kind of torment would drive a person crazy. The big shots weren't scary. The truly scary ones were these crazy little people. Perhaps at the right time, they would give you a fatal blow. Regardless of whether it was for the sake of trouble or to prevent the youth from suffering in hatred, killing him was the best way to solve the problem. Although Yi Xian's theory was extreme, this was his way of life. This was also the reason why he was able to live until now. Thinking back, Yi Xian smiled. What was wrong with him? It was as if he had turned into an old man who had experienced the vicissitudes of life. He still had a long way to go. His life had just begun. Yi Xian's state of mind seemed to sublimate at this moment. He didn't fly away. Instead, he followed the mountain path and slowly walked down Phoenix Cry Mountain. However, behind Yi Xian, the mountain was stained with blood. The Leng Manor had been reduced to ruins. Countless corpses of the Leng family warriors were strewn on the ground. The scene was extremely terrifying. Chapter 65. 3 days passed, and when the news of the Leng family's destruction spread throughout the ancient martial arts world, it immediately caused a huge uproar and various speculations emerged. Some people said that the destruction of the Leng family was caused by their former enemy, while others said that the Leng family had offended a big shot that they shouldn't have offended. There were no eternal dynasties or aristocratic families. Although it was rare for an ancient martial arts family to be destroyed, there were many such examples. After all, in the martial arts world, there would naturally be grudges. Although the destruction of the Leng family caused a stir in the ancient martial arts world, it soon subsided. However, this incident caused the Azure Dragon to be extremely shocked. He never would have thought that Yi Xian would actually be so terrifying. An ancient martial family was instantly destroyed by his hands. At the same time, when the Zhuo family received the news of the destruction of the Leng family, old Master Zhuo seemed to have aged 10 years. He also became extremely anxious because he was the one who had passed the news of Yi Xian to the Leng family. However, now that the Leng family had been destroyed, he would never believe that it was not done by Yi Xian. At this moment, there was also a drastic change in the Zhuo family. Old Master Zhuo died suddenly at home overnight. After a doctor's examination, it was discovered that he had died of sudden heart failure. However, the drastic change was not over. With the sudden death of old Master Zhuo Junting's father also died in a car accident. The power of the entire Zhuo family fell into the hands of the second son, Zhuo Wenbin. Zhuo Junting also disappeared without a trace and was listed as a missing person by the Hanging Mirror Department. Jiangnan City. The firecrackers were set off and the fireworks were dazzling. It was the Spring Festival, the most important festival in Xia Nation. Everyone's faces were full of joy and it could be said to be extremely lively. At home in the Baiyun Pavilion, Yi Xian was having a New Year's Eve dinner with his family with a smile on his face. It was also the first time he had spent the Spring Festival with his family after returning to the mortal world. However, Yi Xian could sense that although his mother was very happy, there was a trace of regret in her eyes from time to time. Clearly, she missed Yi Ping. How could Yi Xian not see that? Yi Xian could only sigh in his heart. He didn't know if he should tell his mother about the changes in Yi Ping. Dong dong dong. All of a sudden, Yi Xian frowned when he heard a knock on the door. He didn't know who it was. At this time, everyone was celebrating the Spring Festival at home. Who would come to visit? I'll go open the door. Yi Ling put down her bowl and chopsticks and walked towards the door. As Yi Ling pushed open the door, Yi Xian and Mother Yi also looked outside. When a familiar face fell into the eyes of the three, Yi Xian's expression froze. He then silently lowered his head to eat the food in his bowl. His entire person was extremely calm. On the other hand, Mother Yi was crying tears of joy as she quickly walked towards the Yi family's main gate. Ping, why did you come back? Outside the door, Yi Ping was dressed in a suit and carrying a large number of goods in his hands. When he saw Mrs. Yi, a look of guilt appeared in his eyes and he murmured, "Mother." Second brother. Looking at Yi Ping in front of her, Yi Ling was also a little agitated. "Little sister," Yi Ping said with a sour nose. Come in quickly, come in quickly." "Look who he is," Mother Yi said agitatedly as she pulled Yi Ping's arm and walked towards Yi Xian. Big brother." Looking at Yi Xian calmly eating the food in his bowl without even looking at him, Yi Ping also felt a little awkward. "Xian, look, your brother is back," Mother Yi said to Yi Xian excitedly at this moment, not noticing the abnormality between the two brothers. "Oh." Yi Xian responded with a simple word. Only then did Mother Yi realize that the situation seemed to be a little strange. "You two brothers have met before?" Mother Yi seemed to have seen something and asked in a slightly suspicious voice. Sensing Mother Ye's uneasiness, Yi Xian finally looked at Yi Ping and said with a smile, "Since you're back, sit down and eat." Looking at Yi Xian's smiling face, Yi Ping could feel that there was a huge chasm between him and Yi Xian. Yi Ping also knew that if it weren't for his mother, Yi Xian probably wouldn't even look at him. Okay, sit down and eat. Tell mother, why did the Yi family let you come back?" Under Mother Ye's invitation, Yi Ping finally sat down. Yi Ling also returned to the dining table. Now that the family was gathered, Mother Yi was also very happy. At the dining table, Mother Yi kept putting food on her children's plates and asked about Yi Ping's current situation from time to time. Yi Ping's answer was also simple. He had already grown up and naturally had to come back to be filial to his mother. He even said that he wouldn't be returning to the Yi family for the time being, which made Mother Yi very happy. However, Yi Xian didn't speak at the dining table. Although Yi Ling was young, she could tell that Yi Ping's body was tense when he was chatting with her mother. From time to time, he would look at Yi Xian from the corner of his eyes, as if he was a little afraid of Yi Xian. Dinner was soon over and the family also watched the Spring Festival Gala on TV. Although this year's Spring Festival Gala was extremely boring, Mother Yi watched with great interest with her children by her side. Late at night, Mrs. Yi personally tidied up the room, and Yi Ping stayed there too. When Mrs. Yi returned to her room to rest, the two brothers sat opposite each other in the living room while Yi Ling secretly opened a crack in the door of the room and quietly observed her two brothers. Big brother. Looking at Yi Xian's calm face, Yi Ping murmured. Don't call me big brother. When we were in the Yi family, I told you that from now on, we are no longer brothers. Yi Xian's expression was as usual and his voice was extremely calm. Big brother, I know you resent me, but can't you forgive me? Yi Ping asked with a pale face. Looking at his former underling, Yi Xian said softly, I don't know what your purpose is for coming back and what mission the Yi family has given you, but I want to tell you, if you make Mother and Ling sad, don't blame me for being ruthless. Brother, do we really not have a trace of brotherhood anymore? Yi Ping clenched his fists and asked agitatedly. Yi Xian got up from his seat and looked down at Yi Ping condescendingly. Do you know what it was like when I returned home? I hope you don't force me, because I will really kill you. Yi Xian suddenly turned around and walked towards his room. His ruthless voice echoed in Yi Ping's ears, making Yi Ping's heart turn cold and extremely upset. Yi Ping could completely feel that his brother was not just saying it. His cold gaze was like that of the god of the underworld, as if he would take his life in the next moment. That also made him feel uneasy and unsure of what he was thinking. In the room, Yi Ling secretly watched this scene and covered her mouth gently, almost exclaiming out loud. Yi Ling could not figure out what exactly happened to make Yi Xian say that he wanted to kill Yi Ping. Besides, it seemed that the two brothers had already met long ago and something very unpleasant must have happened. Chapter 66. Late at night. Yi Xian was alone in the house, looking at the moonlight outside the window with a straight face. He knew that Yi Ping's return must have been the Yi family's idea. However, no matter what the Yi family's agenda was, it was not something that Yi Xian was worried about. If they didn't know when to back off, Yi Xian would only have death waiting for them. Yi Xian's thoughts were simple. If Yi Ping really came back to be filial to his mother, he couldn't stop him. After all, Yi Ping was his mother's son, and as long as he followed the rules, he would still be Yi Ping's elder brother. However, if Yi Ping was ambitious, even if he was Yi Xian's biological brother, Yi Xian would be ruthless and make him disappear completely from this world. Time passed very quickly, and it had been a month since Yi Ping returned home. During this period, nothing much happened and Mrs. Yi looked radiant every day, as if she had become 10 years younger. That made Yi Xian feel a little gratified. During this period, Xia Qingzhu visited Mrs. Yi to give her a New Year's greeting while Yun Mengyao also visited several times in the name of a home visit. However, Yi Xian didn't show up when the two women visited. Clearly, he didn't want to have anything to do with the two women. During this period, strange phenomena frequently appeared all over the world. Although there were no news reports, there were various rumors on the internet. There were foreign netizens who left comments saying that they had seen a 1,000-feet-long strange snake swimming in the Amazon River and even swallowing a crocodile. Although the photo posted by the netizen was extremely blurry, it was indeed a snake-like creature. There were also netizens from other countries who left comments saying that they had seen some terrifying things, but no one believed them. When these comments were gathered together, the netizens were very certain that the terrifying things they saw did exist, causing a huge uproar. There were frequent murders all over the world, but the murderer couldn't be found. Many livestock and humans died without a corpse, causing great panic in some places. Mysterious organizations of various countries showed up one after another to investigate these strange phenomena, but in the end, they didn't get the results they wanted. The cold winter passed and the spring breeze blew. In March, it was the season of spring and flowers bloomed. A patch of tender green grew from the branches and the sounds of birds chirping could be heard. Everything was slowly recovering, giving off a feeling of vitality. In the botanical garden of the Biyun Pavilion. Although there was still some coldness in the air, the various flowers and plants in the botanical garden had already shown some tender shoots, proving that the cold winter had passed and spring was coming. Yi Xian walked alone in the botanical garden until he chose an empty area before stopping. Yi Xian waved his fists and feet, causing ripples to blossom in the air. A wisp of hazy and illusory blood light slowly blossomed around his body. Phew! Yi Xian spat out a mouthful of turbid air, and a muffled sound came from the other side. Only then did Yi Xian's dancing fists and feet stop. Are you still not coming out after watching for so long? Yi Xian stood with his hands behind his back. Mr. Yi, please avenge me. A disheveled woman walked out from a hidden pile of grass. Her face was covered in dirt, making it impossible to see her appearance. However, her eyes were bloodshot as she excitedly looked at Yi Xian in front of her. Zhuo Junting. Her once graceful and luxurious temperament was no longer present on her body. Her dirty clothes and disheveled appearance proved that this woman had suffered a lot in the past few months. Why should I help you? Yi Xian asked calmly. My grandfather is dead. My father is also dead. My second uncle, Zhuo Wenbin, did all these things. If you don't help me, I don't know who else in Jiangnan City can. Zhuo Junting smiled sadly. But what does that have to do with me? Yi Xian shook his head slowly. His voice was emotionless. Mr. Yi, I beg of you. Bang! Zhuo Junting suddenly knelt down and kept kowtowing to Yi Xian. Her forehead hit the ground and blood flowed out. Tears gushed out of her eyes and her voice was trembling. Yi Xian spared her life at the Bohai Hotel. Later, the Zhuo family sent his information to the Leng family. Although it was old Master Zhuo's idea and had nothing to do with Zhuo Junting, Yi Xian was not merciful enough to repay evil with good. Your Zhuo family's matter has nothing to do with me. If you want revenge, it's your own business. You can leave now. Yi Xian said calmly and turned to walk home. Mr. Yi, I beg of you. Please help me. Zhuo Junting cried bitterly as she looked at Yi Xian's back. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was already far away. He was not soft-hearted at all. Zhuo Junting staggered to her feet and quickly chased after Yi Xian. However, when Yi Xian entered the house, Zhuo Junting's eyes were filled with despair. She then knelt weakly in front of Yi Xian's house and never got up again. At the same time, in the Zhuo family's villa, Zhuo Wenbin's expression was gloomy and cold as he leaned against the sofa. Opposite him was a haggard old man with a deathly pale complexion. His 10 fingers were like ghost claws, and when his eyes opened and closed, 2 ghostly flames would appear. It was an extremely terrifying sight. Elder Ghost, we've found that damned girl. She's now in front of Mr. Ye's house. What should we do? Zhuo Wenbin's face was gloomy and there was a hint of panic in his eyes. It was obvious that Yi Xian had given him a lot of pressure. This person is not simple. We can't act rashly. Elder Ghost said solemnly. But if we don't kill this girl, how can I obtain the essence blood in her body to cultivate the netherworld true scripture? Zhuo Wenbin said unwillingly. Looking at the unwillingness in Zhuo Wenbin's eyes, Elder Ghost snorted coldly. If what you said is true and this person is the one who destroyed the Leng family, I might not be his match even though I'm cultivating the Ghost Dao. But Elder Ghost, you're a Ghost Dao master. You're not a true ancient martial artist. With your unpredictable methods, can't you deal with this Yi Xian? Zhuo Wenbin said in surprise. Are you an idiot? Elder Ghost's face was gloomy as he rebuked him directly. Back then, when I used the ghost infant to devour your father's qi and blood, it was broken by this person. This Yi Xian is not simple. Without full confidence, I definitely won't go against him. When Elder Ghost said this, fear flashed through his eyes. He actually did not tell Zhuo Wenbin the truth. Back then, when his ghost infant was broken, he was heavily injured. It took him several months to recover, and this was under the condition that he had not met Yi Xian. If he went against Yi Xian head-on, he probably would not be his match. If I didn't know that your father had joined the Leng family and completely cut ties with Yi Xian, do you think I would so easily make a move and help you obtain the position of family head? Elder Ghost said unhappily. Looking at Elder Ghost's gloomy expression, Zhuo Wenbin instantly came to a realization. He said, Are we just going to let this damned girl go? Ha! Elder Ghost smiled sinisterly. A strange look flashed through his eyes. He said, You're overthinking things. You've always put this Yi Xian on the opposite side. From the way he does things, he's definitely not a good person. If we can become friends with him, it will be of great benefit to us. Moreover, this niece of yours might not be able to beg this expert. Zhuo Wenbin came to a realization. That's right. He had never offended this Mr. Yi, so why couldn't he become friends with him? Then what do you mean? Zhuo Wenbin asked carefully. Bring a great gift. We'll visit him personally. Elder Ghost's gaze was serious as he directly made a decision. Chapter 67. The spring rain continued and the temperature plummeted. Although it was already early spring, there was still a hint of coldness in the air. The drizzling rain also drenched Zhuo Junting's delicate body. Zhuo Junting had been kneeling in front of Yi Xian's house since early morning. Even though it was drizzling, she never got up. However, there was only despair in her dull eyes, making one feel pity for her. Brother, are you really going to let her kneel like this? Yi Ling asked with a pitiful expression. Yi Xian put his hands behind his back and looked calmly at Zhuo Junting kneeling outside the door through the window. His expression did not change at all, and no one could tell what he was thinking. She has hatred in her heart and has already fallen into paranoia. Such a person is undoubtedly crazy, especially a woman. Yi Xian said calmly. Brother, why don't you help her? Yi Ling bit her lips and said. Looking at Yi Ling's pitiful expression, Yi Xian smiled and said, Silly girl, there are so many pitiful people in this world. If I help every one of them, do you think I can help them all? At this point, Yi Xian's voice paused slightly and a strange look appeared in his eyes. He said, Besides, this world is unfair. She wants me to help her take revenge, but what can she give me in return? Yi Ling did not understand Yi Xian's words. She also knew that her brother was very mysterious, but she could not bear to see Zhuo Junting kneeling outside the door. In the end, Yi Ling could only sigh softly and did not speak up for Zhuo Junting. Night fell and the wind and rain stopped. When Mrs. Yi and Yi Ping returned home together, they naturally saw Zhuo Junting kneeling outside the door. Under Mrs. Ye's questioning, Yi Xian just evaded and told Mrs. Yi that he had made his own decision. At the same time, a luxurious car drove into Baiyun Pavilion and stopped in front of Yi Xian's house. Zhuo Wenbin and Elder Gui got out of the car together. When the two of them came in front of Zhuo Junting, Zhuo Wenbin sneered. Ha! Isn't this my good niece? Why didn't you greet second uncle? Suddenly, Zhuo Junting raised her head abruptly. Her eyes were bloodshot and filled with venomous hatred. She looked like an evil spirit that had crawled out of hell. If looks could kill, Zhuo Wenbin would have died 1,000 times over. What a strong resentment! Elder Ghost exclaimed in a low voice. He looked at Zhuo Junting with a look of delight, as if he had seen a treasure. Zhuo Wenbin, you bastard who killed your father and brother. Even if I die and become an evil spirit, I will haunt you day and night. I will never let you rest in peace. Zhuo Junting roared like an evil spirit. Her mournful voice sent chills down people's spines. Humph, you have a sharp tongue. Wait until I meet Mr. Yi. See how I'll kill you then, Zhuo Wenbin said viciously. Creak. The door of the Yi residence was pushed open and Yi Xian walked out slowly. This made Zhuo Wenbin and Zhuo Wenbin's expressions change. A flattering smile appeared on their faces as they quickly walked towards Yi Xian. I've heard a lot about Mr. Yi. I hope Mr. Yi won't blame us for visiting without permission. Zhuo Wenbin bowed and lowered his posture. Greetings, Brother Yi. Elder Ghost cupped his hands and bowed. He looked very serious. Is there anything I can help you with? Yi Xian asked calmly. Mr. Yi, I'm very sorry. My niece disturbed your peace. I'm here to bring her back to the Zhuo residence. This is a small token of my appreciation. Please accept it. Zhuo Wenbin said respectfully. He even bowed and handed the 2 wooden boxes to Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian didn't take them, which made Zhuo Wenbin feel a little awkward. Brother Yi, can we go in and have a chat? Elder Ghost's eyes turned as he probed Yi Xian. Looking at Zhuo Wenbin and Zhuo Wenbin's eager expressions, Yi Xian's eyes flashed with a strange light. He then slowly nodded and walked directly into the house. Elder Ghost gave Zhuo Wenbin a look. The 2 of them were delighted and quickly walked into Yi Xian's house. At this moment, when Junting saw this scene, she bit her lips even harder. She staggered to her feet and followed him into Yi Xian's house. It was obvious that she could tell that Zhuo Wenbin wanted to rope in Yi Xian. She absolutely wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. In the living room, Yi Xian sat on the sofa and calmly looked at the 3 people in front of him. Mother Yi and the others knew that Yi Xian had matters to attend to, so they had returned to their rooms early. They didn't want to see these outsiders. I know that Brother Yi is an otherworldly expert. Naturally, you don't care for worldly money. These 2 boxes are 500 years old ginseng. They are also spiritual items that Wen Bin spent a lot of effort to obtain. I hope that Brother Yi will kindly accept this small gift. Elder Ghost quickly opened the 2 wooden boxes. The rich fragrance of ginseng wafted out. He directly pushed them in front of Yi Xian. The smile on his face became even more flattering, but the pain in his eyes disappeared in an instant. Yi Xian was slightly stunned as he looked at the old ginseng in the 2 wooden boxes. He could completely feel the traces of spiritual energy contained within them. He never thought that such a spiritual medicine would appear in this world at the end of the world. This was indeed rare. Yi Xian could tell that Zhuo Wenbin and Zhuo Wenbin were painstakingly trying to please him. I'll accept the gifts. Yi Xian nodded. He directly closed the wooden boxes to prevent the spiritual energy from leaking out. Although this spiritual medicine was useless to him, it was extremely effective for ordinary people. Seeing Yi Xian accept the gifts, Zhuo Wenbin's heart finally relaxed. He looked at Zhuo Junting with a trace of cold murderous intent in his eyes. Mr. Yi, no matter what orders you have in the future, as long as it is within my power, I will not refuse. Zhuo Wenbin stepped up at the right time and expressed his attitude. If there's nothing else, you can leave. Yi Xian nodded and spoke softly. Seeing that Yi Xian didn't intend to pay attention to him, Zhuo Wenbin was stunned. He wanted to say something, but before he could, Elder Ghost rolled his eyes and hurriedly pretended to be angry. He said, "Why aren't you taking your useless niece home? Are you going to disturb Mr. Ye's rest?" Huh? Zhuo Wenbin was stunned. He quickly came back to his senses and immediately understood Elder Ghost's meaning. Since Mr. Yi accepted the gifts, he clearly had no intention of protecting Zhuo Junting. Talking too much at this moment would be unnecessary. Mr. Yi, we'll take our leave. Zhuo Wenbin spoke respectfully to Yi Xian. A vicious smile appeared on his face as he looked at Zhuo Junting. He directly grabbed her arm and walked out of the Yi residence. Zhuo Junting was only a weak woman. How could she break free from Zhuo Wenbin's control? Under his constant tugging, her eyes were filled with despair. She even loudly asked for help from Yi Xian. "Mr. Yi, are you really going to leave me in the lurch?" Unfortunately, Yi Xian remained indifferent to Zhuo Junting's pleas. When the woman was dragged out of the Yi residence by Zhuo Wenbin, the 3 figures disappeared from Yi Xian's sight. If I didn't crawl out of hell, where would the bloody sea of hatred come from? Yi Xian whispered to himself. A smile appeared on his lips. The blood was hazy and the void hummed. When Yi Xian's voice fell, he mysteriously disappeared from the house. Chapter 68. Zhuo Family Villa. The servants had already been dismissed by Zhuo Wenbin. The entire villa was dimly lit. Zhuo Wenbin sat on the sofa with a glass of red wine in his hand, sipping it from time to time. His eyes were filled with excitement. An operation table, a cold scalpel, and various unknown medicines were placed in the living room. Zhuo Junting was tied up and fixed to the operation table. She was cursing at the top of her lungs. Zhuo Wenbin, you bastard. Even if I die today and turn into a ghost, I'll eat your flesh and drink your blood. Like an evil spirit howling, like a malicious spirit howling, the current Zhuo Junting no longer had the demeanor of a virtuous lady. She seemed to have turned into a lunatic. Her crimson eyes were blooming with extremely terrifying hatred. Little girl, you will indeed turn into a ghost. You're just a tool in my hands. Elder Ghost said excitedly. A gloomy ghost aura appeared around him. He picked up the scalpel and walked toward Zhuo Junting. Unwillingness, despair, endless anger, and hatred. These were Zhuo Junting's emotions at the moment. She was originally a rich young lady. According to the normal course of her life, she would never have to worry about food or clothing. In the future, she would find a husband, have a child, and live a peaceful and happy life. Zhuo Junting had never thought that one day, her family would be ruined and she would be killed by her second uncle. However, when the truth was placed in front of her, she finally realized that all of this was not a dream, but a reality that she had to face. Elder Ghost, you have to be careful. Don't kill her directly. Only when she's alive and releasing her heart's blood will it be useful to me. Zhuo Wenbin put down the red wine cup and quickly walked towards Elder Ghost. Even his voice was trembling. Wenbin, I really didn't misjudge you. You really are vicious and ruthless enough. Not only were you able to kill your father and older brother, you don't even have the slightest bit of humanity when facing your last family member. Elder Ghost laughed ghastly, and it was unknown if he was praising Zhuo Wenbin or ridiculing him. Zhuo Wenbin's face reddened as a look of shame flashed across his eyes. However, it was quickly replaced by madness as he said in a sinister voice, as long as I can cultivate the netherworld true insight and become a half-ghost, I'll be able to live forever and become immortal. In the future, the entire world will be mine. What's a mere family relationship worth? Good. As expected of a disciple of my ghost Tao. You have great perseverance and willpower. Elder Ghost's eyes flickered as he praised once more. My good niece, although second uncle cannot bear to kill you, for second uncle's future, I can only sacrifice you. Zhuo Wenbin gently stroked Jun Ting's cheek, as if admiring a treasure. You bastard, you will die a horrible death. At this point, Zhuo Junting knew she would die without a doubt. She gritted her teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. Her blood-red eyes bloomed with terrifying hatred, but there was nothing she could do to Zhuo Wenbin. Do it. Zhuo Wenbin said coldly. As you wish. Elder Ghost smiled sinisterly. He took the scalpel and directly cut towards Zhuo Junting's heart. Yes. A muffled groan came from Zhuo Junting's mouth. She couldn't see the scene in front of her chest, but she could feel that the sharp blade had already cut open her chest, and a large amount of liquid was spurting out from her chest. Did it hurt? Zhuo Junting could no longer feel pain. She could only feel that the cold blade was constantly stirring in her chest. Her blood was flowing out, and her consciousness was gradually blurring. The faces of her father and grandfather before their tragic deaths appeared in her mind. The operation continued, and she could no longer feel pain. Zhuo Junting's heart was now filled with monstrous unwillingness and hatred. She was unresigned. Why was she a weak woman? She was unwilling to die here before she had avenged her great enmity. Her consciousness was gradually blurring, and her eyes were gradually losing focus. At this moment, Zhuo Junting already had one foot in the door of death. It wouldn't be long before she turned into a cold corpse. The operation was very successful. The blood from her heart has been extracted. You must quickly refine it before it turns cold. Only then can you achieve a half-ghost body. Elder Ghost directly handed the container to Zhuo Wenbin. It contained the blood from Zhuo Junting's heart. Okay. Zhuo Wenbin was very excited. He took the container from Elder Ghost, raised his head, and poured the blood into his mouth. Then, he sat cross-legged and circulated the nether truth. Instantly, Zhuo Wenbin's body emitted an extremely sinister ghost qi. He entered a strange state of cultivation. At this moment, on the operating table, a large amount of blood slowly flowed out from Zhuo Junting's chest. Her body was silently twitching, and her life force was slowly dissipating. However, she kept her eyes wide open. Relying on the endless hatred in her heart, she didn't want to die like this. Time passed by quickly. 20 minutes had passed, and Zhuo Wenbin had undergone an extremely terrifying transformation. His body gradually turned into mist, and his originally human form now looked somewhat distorted. There was also an extremely dense ghostly aura lingering around him. Zhuo Wenbin suddenly opened his eyes. When his eyes opened and closed, 2 jade-green ghost flames were extremely frightening. It gave people an extremely terrifying feeling. Success! Zhuo Wenbin roared excitedly. He stretched his arms, and the air around him exploded. He seemed to have an illusion. At this moment, even if a mountain blocked in front of him, he would be able to shatter it into pieces with a single punch. Elder Ghost, in order to thank you for your kindness in nurturing me, Wenbin has nothing to repay you. I can only treat you as blood food and have a meal first. Zhuo Wenbin woke up from his excitement. His voice became even colder, and there was a hint of killing intent in his eyes as he looked at Elder Ghost. You want to kill me? Facing Zhuo Wenbin, who was half human and half ghost, Elder Ghost sneered. It was as if he held the pearl of wisdom in his hands and did not put Zhuo Wenbin in his eyes at all. This is what you taught me. If I want to achieve great things, then I cannot have the slightest bit of mercy. Zhuo Wenbin laughed evilly. Ding ling ling. Ah! Suddenly, a golden bell appeared in Elder Ghost's hand. It was slowly swinging, causing Zhuo Wenbin to howl in pain and fall to the ground. Wenbin, you're still too inexperienced. If I did not have the means to keep you in check, how would I dare to teach you the nether truth? Elder Ghost said with disdain. Elder Ghost, I was wrong. Please spare me. Zhuo Wenbin howled in pain as he kept begging. Humph. I'll let you go this time. If you have any thoughts of betraying me in the future, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. Elder Ghost put away the golden bell and said with an extremely cold voice. Go. Your niece is not completely dead yet. Consume her flesh and blood to stabilize your unstable half-ghost body. Elder Ghost laughed evilly and pointed at Junting, who was lying on the operating table. Food? What delicious blood food! Zhuo Wenbin slowly got up. His eyes were like copper bells. Large amounts of saliva flowed out from the corner of his mouth as he walked toward Junting. At this moment, Junting's consciousness was blurred. Her body was emitting an aura of death. If it were not for the hatred in her heart, she would have died long ago. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I haven't had my revenge. Revenge. Junting's voice was as soft as a mosquito. However, the hatred that could not be washed away by the rivers and the 4 seas filled the entire Junting villa. Do you hate? Are you angry? Are you unwilling? All of a sudden, a strange voice sounded in Zhuo Junting's mind. Zhuo Junting couldn't tell where the voice came from, but her heart was telling her that only this person could save her. I want to kill him. I want to kill everyone. Give me strength. Please give me strength. Junting screamed in her heart. Monstrous hatred filled the air. This world is very unfair. Some people are born to be emperors and nobles, controlling the fate of others. Some people are born poor and waste their lives. But today, I'll give you a fair chance. Give me your soul. From now on, you'll be my blade. Wherever my blade points, you'll break all obstacles for me. Are you willing? Like the temptation of the devil, like the guidance of the god of the underworld. When the strange voice sounded again, Junting trembled. Her blood-red eyes bloomed with a madness that had never been seen before. I'm willing. I'm willing. As long as you give me endless power, I'll give you my soul. I'll be your blade forever. Even if I have to kill everyone in the world, I'll have no regrets. Junting answered in a shrill voice. She had already sunk into madness. Good. Heaven and earth can be my witness. Today, in the name of the immortal heavenly Lord, I'll give you the blood-soul body. You'll fall into the mortal world forever. Contract. In the Zhuo family villa. Yi Xian's majestic voice seemed to have transcended time and space. A blood-red contract word formed in the void and rushed into Junting's body. Chapter 69. Ah! Like the howl of a malicious spirit, like the wail of a vengeful spirit, Zhuo Wenbin let out a ferocious roar. The bloody hole in her chest healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Zhuo Wenbin, who was originally pouncing towards her, was sent flying by the blossoming blood light. Wang! Space surged as ripples spread out. Yi Xian's sudden appearance caused the spectral elder's face to change drastically. He took a few steps back as panic appeared in his eyes. Kill! Zhuo Junting's eyes were blood-red and her face was extremely ferocious. She took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of Zhuo Wenbin. She stretched out her hands and 10 blood-red nails extended, tearing Zhuo Wenbin into pieces. What is this thing? Looking at Junting's terrifying appearance, Elder Ghost cried out in shock. My dear niece, I've already become a half-ghost, an undying existence. You can't kill me. Ghostly shadows flickered and Yin Qi regenerated. Zhuo Wenbin's body condensed. Apparently, Zhuo Wenbin's attack did not harm him at all. Blood-soul technique. The bloody light was chaotic, and a vicious aura was overflowing. A pile of extremely mysterious scriptures suddenly appeared in Zhuo Junting's mind. Although she couldn't understand them, she seemed to have a feeling that she had to use a method to truly kill Zhuo Wenbin. This made her roar directly, and her whole body turned into a bloody light, and instantly swallowed Zhuo Wenbin. Ah! Zhuo Wenbin let out a mournful howl as the ghostly qi melted away. In this terrifying bloody light, Zhuo Wenbin was horrified to discover that the half-ghostly body he had just condensed was rapidly dissipating. This shocking change made him feel the fear of death. I'm immortal. Ghost. Ghost Elder, save me, Zhuo Wenbin howled miserably. His voice grew weaker and weaker as he was completely devoured by the bloody light. Not even a bit of his body was left. Bang! The bloody light faded and Zhuo Junting's body appeared. However, her face was extremely pale and she was panting weakly. However, her eyes were filled with indescribable hatred. No, impossible, impossible, he's a half-ghost, an immortal existence. How could he be killed by someone? Elder Ghost's voice trembled as if he couldn't believe what he had just seen. Immortal? Disdain flashed through Yi Xian's eyes as he calmly said, not to mention a mere half-ghost body, even the legendary immortal gods wouldn't dare to say that they are immortal and indestructible. You mortals are really stupid. As Yi Xian's voice entered his ears, Elder Ghost suddenly woke up. He abruptly looked at Yi Xian and continuously retreated. His eyes revealed extreme fear as he said, You. Who exactly are you? Yi Xian was an ancient martial artist. Yi Xian was a martial artist. But Yi Xian was an martial artist. That was ancient martial artist. Yi ancient. Martial artist ancient. Was martial artist. Ancient martial artist. An A. Ancient martial. At this moment, Yi Xian was very calm. However, the aura he exuded was extremely heavy. It was like a mountain pressing down on Elder Ghost's heart. I'll give you two choices. One is to kill yourself here. Two is to be killed by me, Yi Xian said in a low voice. The mountain-like pressure and the feeling of death. Elder Ghost had lived for dozens of years. His eyes were extremely sharp. How could he not see that Yi Xian wasn't just joking? He really wanted to kill him. Mr. Yi, as the saying goes, leave a way out for yourself. Although I don't know who you are, I'm a disciple of Dragon Tiger Mountain. If I die in your hands today, Dragon Tiger Mountain won't let you go in the future, Elder Ghost said while pretending to be fierce. Kill him. Yi Xian said softly. He didn't say anything else. Zhuo Junting laughed ferociously. She turned into a bloody shadow again and tried to devour Yi Xian. Soul destruction curse. Yi Xian turned hostile immediately. Elder Ghost's expression changed. He quickly formed a spell. Rays of dark light bloomed from his hand. He slammed them at Zhuo Junting. Ugh! The dark light entered her body. Zhuo Junting staggered. The bloody light around her became slightly illusory. Clearly, Zhuo Junting was injured by Elder Ghost's spell. Interesting. Seeing the spell in Elder Ghost's hand, Yi Xian's eyes lit up. He looked playful. If Yi Xian wasn't wrong, Elder Ghost was using a Ghost Dao spell. However, it was a low-level spell. Yi Xian didn't think much of it. What truly surprised Yi Xian was that even though it was an unorthodox technique, it still required spiritual energy to activate. This was also a symbol of stepping into the realm of cultivators. However, Yi Xian didn't feel the slightest bit of spiritual energy from Elder Gui's body. Yet, this person was still able to use ghost techniques without the support of spiritual energy. This was indeed strange to Yi Xian. Back off. Zhuo Junting glared at Elder Ghost viciously after Yi Xian called for her. She didn't attack him anymore. However, this wasn't what Elder Ghost wanted to see. He would rather fight Zhuo Junting than face Yi Xian. As an abandoned disciple of Longhu Mountain, although his cultivation wasn't high, his senses were very sharp. If Yi Xian attacked, he wouldn't be able to escape. Mr. Yi, don't force me. Seeing Yi Xian slowly walk towards him, Elder Ghost kept backing away. A golden bell appeared in his hand as a desperate look appeared in his eyes. Boom! Yi Xian took a step forward, causing the air to explode. Under Elder Ghost's astonished gaze, Yi Xian had already appeared before him. Without waiting for him to shake the golden bell, Yi Xian's jade-like palm had already pressed down on his head. Let me see why you can use a Ghost Dao spell without any spirit qi in your body. Soul search. Yi Xian enunciated each word clearly. His eyes shone with a strange blood-red light, which immediately made Elder Ghost's eyes glaze over. It was as if he had lost his soul and turned into a walking corpse. After a full 10 minutes, when the bloody light in Yi Xian's eyes dissipated and he removed his palm from Elder Ghost's head, he saw Elder Ghost fall to the ground like a pile of mud. His scattered eyes proved that Elder Ghost was dead to the point where he couldn't be any more dead. Elder Ghost's death didn't affect Yi Xian in the slightest. Only a hint of admiration appeared in his eyes. As its name implied, soul-searching was an extremely vicious secret technique. Not only was it capable of reading Elder Ghost's memories, once this technique was executed, Elder Ghost's soul would be obliterated without a trace, and he wouldn't even have the chance to reincarnate. From Elder Ghost's memories, Yi Xian finally understood why he could use a Ghost Dao spell even though he wasn't an immortal cultivator. Longhu Mountain was a holy land of Taoism. In the distant past, immortal cultivators truly existed. Elder Ghost's real name was Lu Qi. Elder Ghost was just his alias. He was originally a disciple of Longhu Mountain. He was hunted down by Longhu Mountain for stealing the Nether Truth, so he hid in Jiangnan City. But that wasn't the point. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.